Hi.
Yeah.
Hey, as normal on, actually, let me just get through some of these headlines right now. I got a chock-full show today, probably primarily focusing on some national stuff today. Obviously, we have to go through this Candace Owens clip. There's been a couple stories that have been holding back on for a little while that
Isn't that the Full House chick?
No.
Okay.
But why does that sound familiar? Candace... What is her name?
Is that Candace Cameron?
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, I think I was going to say,
bad.
yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, well, Candace, whatever. Anyways, Candace Owens, I think she works for Turning Point. She's an African-American female conservative, which apparently in today's day and age, you actually have to qualify that statement. Anyways, she was, they were talking about racism, they were talking about white nationalism, they were talking about reparations, a whole bunch of stuff. She went to the Hill for a hearing in front of, what is this, Judiciary Committee? I don't know who this is. Doesn't really matter. Either way, I got a clip from her where she's just basically going off on these congressmen, which leads us into the reparations conversation that I wanted to have yesterday, just didn't have time for.
Is it like woot woot for her? Like she went off on him?
She did a little bit, yeah. Whoop whoop for her. She did go off on him, yeah.
So this is a good thing.
It is a good thing, yeah. Okay. And it's interesting, too. I'm going to say this a couple times, but Candace Owens is one of these individuals, much like a diamond and silk are. They're somewhat of anomalies. They can't be accounted for by the left, okay? They're these individuals that have broken the mold, and it's not just like I don't know, if you think of some random publicized figure who's part of the blexit movement or part of the walk away movement, okay? It's something to just walk away from the Democrat Party. It's an entirely different thing to walk away from the Democrat Party and become a Republican. Now you're playing a different sport. If you're walking away from the Democrat Party, you qualify or identify as a Republican, and then you become a public figure, right? And that's what Candace Owens is. And they don't know how to account for her. Because under the rules of the left at this point, if you aggressively try and attack the worldview of an African-American individual, as we've seen for every Republican that does that, I mean, for every conservative that does that on the other side, you're preemptively labeled a bigot, right? You're a racist.
Yeah.
So now these congressmen are stuck in this very odd conundrum because they need to attack and antagonize an individual for her beliefs, for her philosophy, for her political worldview, for anything, but she's an African-American woman. So what do? It's really, really interesting to see how, I don't know, reserved some of these congressmen are, but they're not really reserved, but they also see themselves being caught up in the rules that they're supposed to play by. It's a very, very interesting thing. And either way, Candace Owens doesn't care. She just gives it to him, which is fantastic. It does bring up the conversation of reparations, though, and I said before, I've been searching for... a week or two, ever since I heard Cory Booker come out and say, hey, I'm getting frustrated the rest of these potential Democrat presidential candidates are saying that they also are in support of reparations. Something to the effect of, well, for them, it's just a checkbox. For them, it doesn't really mean much. For them, it's just a prerequisite, like I said before, of you just need to check this box off so you can run as the president. Well, ever since then, I thought to myself, okay, that's true. All these presidential candidates are going to start checking the reparations box. But what does that really mean? At least in my lifetime, it's never really been brought up in a serious conversation. Not to say that we're having a serious conversation about it now. But if there's 25 people running, and I don't know what the number is now anymore, it might as well be 25, it might as well be 55, I don't care. If there's 25 people running to be the nominee of the Democrat Party, and all 25 of them have to agree about the issue of reparations, then it's something that at least they're telling us they'd like to have a conversation about. Either that or we just need to call them out for grandstanding, one of the two. Even if we do call them out for grandstanding, I think it'd be a really interesting conversation to bring it up. But with bringing it up, I needed to find someone that could actually make an intellectual argument for why reparations are needed. And unfortunately, I know this sounds terrible, but unfortunately, I couldn't find it from any of the presidential candidates. I could very rarely find it from anybody that's actually pushing it in the realm of academia in America. I did, however, find Christopher Hitchens from, what is this, almost 10 years ago? It is exactly 10 years ago, yeah. From right at 10 years ago, I found a speech given by Christopher Hitchens. Christopher Hitchens is, I don't know, man, fill in the blank if that's what Christopher Hitchens was. He's an outspoken atheist. He wasn't an evangelical atheist like your Dawkins, sorry. Dawkins is what I meant to say. He was just, he's a social comment. He's a social critic. He's a well-known skeptic. He's an incredible intellect. He's a philosopher. He's done a little bit of everything. He's a New York Times bestselling author. He's all of it. Obviously, the big story that I was going to get to yesterday that's been bleeding over into today as well is all the William Barr testimony. And of course, no bombshell drop from that of what he revealed about the Mueller report. He was basically saying multiple times, listen. Congressmen, senators, you all are you're pretty much asking me to break the law right now, okay? Yeah, there's some portions of this that I simply cannot redact whether you want me to or not. Oh, sorry. If you want the unredacted version of this, you got to let my people, or rather, very interesting point here, I've left it up to Mueller's people, meaning the Mueller-based attorneys, to figure out what is redactable and unredactable, if I can make up two new words here on Real News. There's certain things that under our legal context and under our legal code right now, you simply cannot reveal. Now, Barr gave 4 different categories of that. We may get to that today. You may not even be concerned about what those 4 categories are. You may not even want to see the rest of the Mueller report. That's fine, too. What is the bombshell that came out of this, though? And I have the clips of this. Everybody's reporting this today. Everybody from Real Clear Politics to Fox to CBS to I have an NBC article to The Federalist. All of them. A.G. Barr, quote, spying on a political campaign is a big deal. This is from the Federalist headline right here. A.G. Barr suggests multiple intelligence agencies, multiple intelligence agencies are involved in anti-Trump spy operation. Now, when he says multiple intelligence agencies, this Federalist paper does a great job breaking this down. He, of course, means the FBI, obviously. The FBI is the one that we already know about. When he says multiple, he could potentially mean anything from, I don't know, CIA, National Intelligence Agency. He could possibly mean the Five Eyes. I mean, the connections could go well beyond anything we know about right now. Also, this just broke a second ago. Where'd it go? Here it is. I just saw someone on Facebook comment about this as well, too. I want to say Bob brought this up or somebody. CNN, here's the headline. Is this the 11th today? It is the 11th. All right, so I'm not sure. Let's see. This was updated as of 5:53 a.m. Julian Assange has been arrested. Julian Assange, if you don't know him, the WikiLeaks guy. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been arrested in the at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Police announced this Thursday. Metropolitan Police said its officers went into the embassy where Assange has been living for the past 7 years to detain him for failing to surrender to the court over a warrant issued in 2012. He has been taken into custody at Central London Police Station. What is that? Oh, that's me. Actually, this music works well with this. Hang on. Here we go.
Computer program.
Yeah.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been living inside the Ecuadorian embassy here in London since 2012 in a bid to avoid an international arrest warrant. Ecuador granted Assange asylum after British courts ruled he should be extradited to Sweden. Swedish prosecutors had issued the arrest warrant in 2010 based on allegations of sexual assault by 2 female WikiLeaks volunteers, allegations which Assange denies. WikiLeaks, the organization he founded in 2006, skyrocketed to notoriety in 2010 when it published 90,000 secret documents about the war in Afghanistan. At the time, it was considered the largest intelligence leak in U.S. history. Over the years, scores of classified videos, diplomatic cables, emails, military and government documents were published, including some 400,000 classified military documents from the Iraq War. During the 2016 U.S. presidential primaries, WikiLeaks released nearly 20,000 leaked emails from the Democratic National Committee staffers. Well, the organization says its mission is to shine light on war crimes and abuses, but its critics, including U.S. officials, say it puts national security at risk and violates people's privacy.
All right, so actually Kelly poses a very interesting question here, which and I think that I was going to go to as well. She says, so, with 4 O's, why now with Assange? Yeah, of course, exactly why now. I mean, you would have thought that if they had the authority to bust in the Ecuadorian embassy now, they certainly would have had it prior to. Would you have to wait 7 years to get that warrant? Come on. I mean, something else may be going on. One last plug here. You know what Thursdays mean. Today, this Thursday is going to be, I don't know, y'all. This Thursday is going to do something.
CTT!
CTT, that's what we start calling it. Conspiracy Theory Thursday, C-double-T. This conspiracy, this C-double-T right now, I say in the show that I have aspirations to run for political office, and I truly do. I think that's part of calling my life. I want to help out my fellow man. I do. I feel like service is in my blood. I can never get that out, and I want to serve my fellow man to the best of my absolute ability. But this CTT, this C-double-T, may be something that comes back to bite me. I'll ask this one question. I may continually ask it. 865-888-TALK, 865-888-8255. That's the Crown Plaza call number for the C-double-T today. Try and find this for me, because the New York Times did this a couple years back, offering $50,000. Nobody can answer this question for him. What law requires you to pay a federal income tax? What law requires you to pay a federal income tax? I guess the follow-up would be, was the 16th Amendment actually ratified? request.
Show me your taxes, Mr. Henry.
I'm telling you, man, it's going to be a heavy CTT today. Arnold Cohn is our guy that's on here today, a guy who's fought this multiple times in his life and, well, won multiple times against the IRS. How do you win against the IRS? You can't, except this guy did. Believe it. That's right. 7:20 in the morning. Hit this break. Be right back.
Boop! I think we're gonna have fun on the CTT today, y'all. Hey, is that Facebook audio still clipping? Last couple days, it's been like right on the verge of clipping.
Damn thing gone blind.
Yeah, Bob, what do you know about Arnold Cohn? Cohn. C-O-H-N, I think, right? Yeah. Am I saying that right? Who, the guest? Julian Assange. His last name is A-S-S. No, I just wanted to spell A-S-S. It's A-S-S-A-N-G.
How old are you? I get it, though. I get it.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot of songs for him, so that's cool.
Julian Assange?
Yeah.
He's the guy that broke all the stuff, the stuff.
WikiLeaks?
Well, he is WikiLeaks, but WikiLeaks has been responsible for almost everything in their mother. No, during the 2016 election, all this stuff came about John Podesta, who was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. His brother's Tony Podesta, the guy that got wrapped up in Paul Manafort. It's this big web of just nonsense. The whole, like, Pizzagate was involved with them. The spirit cooking stuff was involved with them. That's where we learned about the media.
This Julia Assange guy?
He's the one who downloaded all this information, yeah. And the whole Russian conspiracy theory.
So he's the one that told on them or was a part of it?
No, he's the one facilitating that information. So here's how it is. The Russian act, the DNC took all their emails, gave it to Julian Assange through WikiLeaks. He made it available to everybody. DNC, it was hack. It was illegal. Those emails, leaked it to Julian Assange, and he made it public. Clearing stories ahead of time, working with journalists, working with the.
So why isn't he dead?
Because he's been in the Ecuadorian embassy for 7 years.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, because now the tell, which is why on Facebook. All right, dude, why now? What's going on? I mean, that's sort of the weird story with him, but
Yeah, that's weird.
yeah.
Outfitters is now open in Pigeon Forge at 2450 Parkway. Check.
Those that are moving, Chapman Highway is busy, but at least lanes are open at Hendron Chapel. That was a bad wreck earlier. UT Orange and White game. UT Orange and White football game is Saturday at 6 p.m. at Neyland Stadium. Admission is free. Gates open at 4:30. It's live on the SEC Network. From the Sky, I'm Pete Michaels.
We are there, day one, with baby names and a gift that lasts a lifetime. We are there as you grow, protecting you and those you love. And we are there as you start your next chapter. We are with you through life's journey. We are Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. Get to know us at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
I'm George Norrie. Join me for Coast to Coast AM overnights at 1 a.m. on Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760. Knoxville's talk you can trust.
Glenn Beck.
I'm telling you, if we go into a recession, a deep recession during the Trump administration, I have a feeling we may be looking at a real socialist in charge of this country that is moving away from the free market in 18 months. And when people are
Yes. Yeah.
that audio sounds like.
Okay.
Million Americans, the pain of migraine sufferers is often so bad their lives just stop. The American Migraine Foundation helps people living with migraine to find the support and treatment they need. Go to AmericanMigraineFoundation.org. Make your move against migraine.
I'm not afraid of Donald Trump.
I'm not either. He's big and soft like a Cheeto. Just chomp down on that orange head of his, you know what I mean? Donald Trump, so cheesy. Donald Trump.
Hey, hey, this next segment, tell me this audio is clipping. You know what I mean by that, right? Like it sounds like it's a bit distorted because it's too loud on my end. It looks like I have it right. Just let me know.
Piece of cork on a sea of truth he walks.
Hey, yeah. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Facebook. All right, how's that audio sound, Facebook? I'm trying to tweak this audio over here, seeing if it's clipping on my end. Looks like it might sound a little bit distorted. That Abby Johnson interview that's up on YouTube and Facebook and all that stuff right now, at least the beginning of that for me was a little bit of distortion back there. Anyways, hey, Ross, before you head out, can I get this computer going here? Yeah? I caught her on her way out. This is real news, by the way. All the social media stuff is all the same. It's just Real News Radio. That's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I think there's a Twitch out there now. There's, I don't know, there's a Periscope. I started that the other day. All this stuff is basically just leading up to whenever I get enough fortitude to actually buck up and do the multicast streaming on all these things, all these simulcast platforms all at one time. So that'll be fantastic. All right. This is what I'm talking about today. I'm going to play this Candace Owens clips. If you want to have a conversation about that, we certainly can. 865-888-TALK, 865-888-8255. It's worth hearing a lot of this, though, for itself. She does lead into a conversation about reparations, and that's where I really want to get to, is just have sort of a philosophical conversation amongst all of us as to what you think about that, because I guarantee you're going to hear at least something about it. At least something about it during this next election cycle. So here's Candace Owens.
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Mr. Collins, thank you for having me here today. I received word on my way in that many of the journalists were confused as to why I was invited, and none of them knew that I myself was the victim of a hate crime when I was in high school. That's something that very few people know about me, because the media and the journalists and the left are not interested in telling the truth about me, because I don't fit the stereotype of what they like to see in black people. I'm a Democrat. I support the President of the United States, and I advocate for things that are actually affecting the black community. I'm honored to be here today in front of you all because the person sitting behind me is my 75-year-old.
Hey, one thing real quick. I don't know Candace Owens that well. Frankly speaking, I made a purpose to, it wasn't like a concerted effort not to follow her career. I don't know, man. There's other people, if I'm going to hear that, I'm not even going to expound upon that. Grant will tell you what he thinks on Facebook later on. Did she just say she's a Democrat, though? Is that right? I mean, that shows how little I know about her. She considers herself a Democrat? I don't know. Someone answer that for me on Facebook. Anyways, continuing.
Grandfather. I've always considered myself to be my grandfather's child, and I mean to say that my sense of humor, my passion, and my work ethic all comes from the man that is sitting behind me. My grandfather grew up on a shopping farm in the segregated South. He grew up in an America where words like racism and white nationalism held real meaning under the Democrat Party's Jim Crow laws. My grandfather's first job was given to him at the age of 5 years old, and his job was to lay tobacco out to dry in an attic in the South. My grandfather has picked cotton, and he has also had...
Hey, real quick story to this. Has nothing to do with Candace Owens. That was actually a job that my father had as well, laying big tobacco leaves out in a shed, and I believe it had a metal roof on it, and he tells the story. I still don't know if he's lying or not, but he tells the story. They had to go in there to get away from a storm one time, and he had his hand on the side of some wall. Maybe it was connected or touching to the roof, and he swears that he got struck by lightning. I shouldn't be laughing about my father getting struck by lightning, but it's just kind of the man he is. Gets struck by lightning, picks it up, and then has me later on. There you go.
Experiences with a Democrat terrorist organization of that time, the Ku Klux Klan. They would regularly visit his home, and they would shoot bullets into it. They had an issue with his father, my great-grandfather. During my formative years, I had the privilege of growing up in my grandfather's home. It's going to shock the committee, but not once Not in a single breath of a conversation did my grandfather tell me that I could not do something because of my skin color. Not once did my grandfather hold a gripe against the white man. I was simply never taught to view myself as a victim because of my heritage. I learned about faith in God, family, and hard work. Those were the only lessons of my childhood. There isn't a single adult today that in good conscience would make the argument that America is a more racist or a more white nationalist society than it was when my grandfather was growing up. And yet we're hearing these terms sent around today because what they want to say is that brown people need to be scared, which seems to be the narrative that we hear every 4 years right ahead of a presidential election. Here are some things we never hear. 75% of the black boys in California don't meet state reading standards. In inner cities like Baltimore, within 5 high schools and 1 middle school, not a single student was found to be proficient in math or reading in 2016.
Wow.
The single motherhood rate in the black community, which is at 23% in the 1960s when my grandfather was coming up, is at a staggering 74% today. I am guessing there will be no committee hearings about that. There are more black babies aborted than born alive in cities like New York, and you have Democrat Governor Andrew Cuomo lighting up buildings to celebrate late-term abortions. I could go on and on. My point is that white nationalism did not do any of those things that I just brought up. Democrat policies did. Let me be clear. The hearing today is not about white nationalism or hate crimes. It's about fear-mongering, power, and control. It's a preview of the Democrat 2020 election strategy, same as the Democrat 2016 election strategy. They blame Facebook, they blame Google, they blame Twitter. Really, they blame the birth of social media, which has disrupted their monopoly on minds.
All right, real quick here, too, because we got to hit this break. I want to say, when you're searching right now, and I said before that individuals like Candace Owens and Diamond and Silk and others like that, that they're anomalies to the leftists. They don't know what to do with them. They can't account for them. And if you're starting to try and understand, okay, what then would be the Democrat or the leftist or progressive retort? It's right here from Salon. And I got to tell y'all, man, how insanely belittling this is. And frankly speaking, how overtly racist this response is kind of disgusts me. Not even kind of, man. I'm going to stop being so friggin', cautious with my words here. This is straight up a disgusting headline. From Salon, Republicans use black woman, Jewish man to gaslight Congress on threat of white nationalism. Okay, so you're saying that there's no way at all. Salon, this is what you're telling me. You are so racist over there at Salon. You're so bigoted that you have actually been convinced that there is no possible way that any black person in this country could possibly think for themselves. I left that pause there on purpose just so that would sink in. That's what you're telling me, Salon. So the only possible way that an African-American woman, a strong, empowered, intelligent African-American woman could go there and say these things is that she was being exploited by old white men on the other side? So basically what I'm hearing from you then is black people's existence mean nothing more in this country other than being exploited by some old white dude on either side. Get out of here with that trash, Salon. I'm tired of this, man. I'm absolutely fed up with this. Republicans use black woman and Jewish man to gaslight Congress on threat of white nationalism. Really? Really? So a Jewish man and a black woman in America, there is no possible way that they could have any semblance of an original thought. As long as it falls in line with the original thought of a white person, it could not possibly be their own. Do you understand how belittling that is? Do you understand my rage behind that? Do you understand how bigoted of a statement that is? That Candace Owens is just being used by Republicans? Why? Why? Because she's too dumb to come up with these thoughts herself? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying, Salon? God forbid on the one occasion that a black woman actually agrees with Republicans on something, now all of a sudden she couldn't possibly have formulated that opinion on her own. Someone had to give that to her and then pay her off to say that in front of people. Your existence means nothing unless the state tells you what your existence means. You cannot operate in this society unless I tell you exactly how you should and can operate in this society. That's what I'm hearing from Salon. 7:34, hit this break, be right back. Unless I tell you exactly how you should and can operate in this society. That's what I'm hearing from Salon. 7:34, hit this break, be right back.
That audio was still a little bit hot, huh? All right, I'll try one more time. Yeah, Kelly, it was a little bit better, but it's still, you hear what I'm saying? When it gets distorted, I think they call that clipping. You can see it in these little bars that I have in my Mevo camera here. If it's touching that top there, it'll distort on y'all's end. Is Mevo doing that? When it gets distorted, I think they call that clipping. That's not bad. Hey, bud.
Home. The break in the case came when the sheriff's office received a tip. Forensics experts will work to determine the exact cause of death. State Representative Rick Staples of Knoxville has received a directive from the House Ethics Subcommittee. The House Workplace Discrimination and Harassment Subcommittee is instructing Staples to take preventative action to make sure he doesn't violate the general. Rick Staples of Knoxville has received a directive. Why? Well, that's not been made public. Staples says he's not under investigation and that he interpreted. Have you seen the pictures circulating on social media of a bear inside the Denso manufacturing plant? TWRA was on a bear hunt in Maryville last night and found what they were looking for. The bear was sedated and will be relocated to a more natural habitat. And now you're up to date. I'm Tanya Stout-Brown on Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760. Knoxville's talk you can trust.
This is Steve Asgard of Wealth and Retirement.
I forgot. Hey, what's your wife? What's her nationality?
What?
What's your wife's nationality?
Her nationality? She's Cuban. I just want to sing her name, but no, Romanian.
That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I thought Ukrainian for some, I don't know.
For my video that explains all the ways I will help you, please call 691-1211. That's 691-1211.
This Fox Business Report is brought to you by Sandler Sales Training.
From the Fox Business Network, it's the battle of the ride-sharing rivals. Shares of Lyft falling below $60 for the first time in Wednesday trading and posting a nearly 11% decline during the session. The plunge comes as rival Uber gets ready to go public. Remember Tesla's Gigafactory? Well, Tesla and Panasonic are suspending plans to expand the capacity of their plant. That's because of uncertain demand for electric vehicles. Financial problems reportedly forcing the companies to rethink that plan. And if you talk to Alexa, a lot of people are listening. Amazon employs thousands of people around the world to listen to help improve the Alexa digital assistant.
Whatever. Y'all keep telling me how the audio sounds. It's going to drive me insane.
The expensive little blue pill is now generic, which means you can get the prescription medication to treat ED at affordable prices. And now get your first month's of...
I think that's good. I'm going to leave it there and focus on a radio show. Because apparently that's why we're all here. Ray, come in here and mess with my audio. Are you in here right now? Gaslighting. Does that even know what gaslighting means? Jeez, man. Here's the dictionary definition of gaslighting. This is what the left is saying has been done to Candace Owens. Because she's so dumb, apparently. Apparently, Salon says that Candace Owens is too dumb because of her own race to figure this stuff out on her own. So they say she's gaslighting, or rather the Republican Party is gaslighting her. If you want to know what gaslighting is, so it says dictionary.com. It's a bit off from how it's actually used, but whatever. Manipulating someone by psychological means into questioning their own sanity. It's a form of psychological manipulation that seeks to sow seeds of doubt in a targeted individual or in members of a targeted group, making them question their own memory, perception, and sanity. So apparently, golly. This author is saying that they're using Candace Owens to gaslight Congress, but what that necessarily implies is that Republicans have gaslit Candace Owens. It's disgusting, man. It's essential to remember, however, that Trump has merely perfected the craft of triggering the libs that the political party he commandeered in 2016 has been developing for decades.
I'll wait till 8 to do a giveaway. What are we giving away?
We have those Ice Bears tickets we have to give away, and then we have the Smokies tickets too.
All right, let's start plugging the Ice Bears tickets then, because I just literally Googled their schedule, and I'm pretty sure there's 2 home games left, but I'm not like super.
Well, in April that the season's done. I just didn't know when. So this is the last weekend. We gotta start pushing that.
Let's start pushing it now. And honestly, like, how many do we have? Just
4.
4 tickets, like a family 4-pack. All right, just give it to the first person who calls. Then.
Okay.
All right.
To go for spring break this week. From the 6th Storm Team, I'm Chief Meteorologist.
Yeah. Heather, that's awesome. So your toddlers are gaslighting you. That's exactly what they're doing. Unless your toddler is going to whip gaslighting. Eric, I think you're right, man. Yeah, that's the problem. Is I think it's an incorrect use of the word. What did my lovely wife just send me? I call my wife my love, by the way, just so y'all know. It's been a long time since I've used her real name. It's true. Feels odd to call her by her real name now. Oh. Wife's sending me something encouraging. Trying to pick my spirits up, wifey.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have the best wife in the world. Not only is she far too beautiful for me to ever have actually spoken to. Roz tells this story all the time.
Yes, absolutely.
Come on, Roz.
The first time I met your wife, you had brought her in studio. This was, almost 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And the minute I saw her, I said, I'm so sorry. I was in front of both of them. I said, I'm so sorry. But Grant, how in the world did you pull this off?
And she's only more beautiful now, 3 years later even.
She's gorgeous.
30 years from now, she's only going to be even more beautiful than that.
Really, I never asked her. I never asked her that question.
I used to have that game back in the day, I'm telling you. Anyways, she's the best wife in the world. She sends me, just sent me some encouraging stuff, trying to lift my spirits a little bit here on Facebook. She knows I'm looking at the Facebook audience right now. Hey, we're talking Candace Owens a little bit. Roz, let's do this again before, because you know I'm going to forget about it. I just dive into these news stories. We have a family 4-pack of Ice Bears tickets to give away. And unless Roz and I are wrong, we're pretty sure there's 2 home games left.
Yeah, they were just, I don't know, whatever commercial just ran. It said something about, I guess, the playoffs are this weekend.
Yeah, I think
so these are the last games.
Friday and Sunday. Please don't quote me on that, but as I looked at it yesterday, I'm pretty sure.
Google Ice Bear schedule.
Yeah.
Look it up yourself. We're probably going to get it wrong, but I know that this is the last weekend. I just don't know the exact date.
And because Roz and I want to give these tickets away so bad, honestly, we're just doing first caller here. 865-888-TALK. That's 865-888-8255. First caller, 865-888-8255. First caller in the Crown Plaza call number. We're going to give you a family 4-packet of ice. 4-pack. Or packet, whatever. You know, they both work.
Okay,
We call it a packet, right? Yeah. A family 4 snack pack.
Oh, I have, I'm just giving it to whoever gets these tickets because I have $6 towards the little Ice Bears bucks or whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you get $6 towards your concession. So there you go, buddy.
All right, so family 4-pack or packet, depending on your persuasion, for the Ice Bears tickets. And I'm pretty sure we're in playoffs right now, but I'm pretty sure 2 of those home games left. Please, again, don't quote me. As I looked yesterday, I think it's Friday and Sunday. Mr. Adams, if he's listening, he'll probably check that and come tell me. First person to call, who we might have that on the line right now. We also have some Smokies tickets to give away later on, so we're in a giveaway mood today. Let's pick this back up here. With Candace Owens. We just played a little bit clip from her. I have about 3 minutes left in this clip. I also want to play her just basically going off on some of these reps here, which is just awesome later on. But for what I'm focusing on right now is just, dude, it's really interesting how... It's not interesting. It's not interesting. It's what I've always said. It's just interesting how it's coming to the forefront now. How the rules, the Solinsky tactics, whatever you want to claim that this is, of the left, forces them to become the racist ones. So there's no way that Salon could potentially account for an African-American woman being a positive force in the conservative movement. There's absolutely no way that Salon or leftists could account for Candace Owens actually being a conservative on her own. So they have to claim that she's being gaslit or being gaslighted or whatever, however it is proper to use that term by Republicans, and therefore Republicans are gaslighting Congress through Candace Owens. She's not doing it on her own. Apparently, so says Salon. She's too dumb to do so. If she was just an intelligent black woman, she'd be a Democrat like the rest of them, like we tell them to. That's what she's saying. That's what she just said. She just said the tactics of the Democrat Party are to scare marginalized minorities into becoming Democrat voters. This article from Salon, Republicans use black woman, Jewish man to gaslight Congress on threat of white nationalism. Now, if you don't know what gaslighting is, you can simply Google the thing, and I think it's used somewhat improperly here. But so says the dictionary definition, gaslighting, manipulating someone by psychological means into questioning their own sanity. Are you kidding me, Salon? So you're saying the only reason why Candace Owens is thinking the way she's thinking is that she's been manipulated by psychological means by Republicans. Oh, Mr. Henry, the article says that she's being used to gaslight Congress. Fine. Here's the headline. Republicans use black woman, Jewish man to gaslight Congress on threat of white nationalism. Okay, fine. But the necessary presupposition to use Candace Owens as gaslighting Congress is that she herself has been gaslit, if you know what I'm saying. Gaslighting again. It's a form of psychological manipulation that seeks to sow seeds of doubt in a targeted individual or in a members of a targeted group, making them question their own memory, perception, and sanity. So apparently the only reason, so say leftists, so say Democrats, so says Salon from the Progressive Party, the only reason why a black person can at all support Trump in this country is because they've been psychologically manipulated to do so. Are you kidding? Do you understand how inherently racist that statement is? Do you get it? Do you understand it, Salon? I love this comment before from Heather on Facebook. Where did she go? I don't like people reading people's last names on air, but she said, I was doing some of this off-air form and reading the definition of gaslighting, and she said something to the effect, I lost the comment now, but she said something effective, oh, so I'm being gaslit by my toddlers every single day. Yeah, you are. Your toddlers are gaslighting you every single day, whether they know it or not, right? Here's what she says. The author, Salon. It is often easy to get caught up in the outrage and the cycle generated by the behavior of the President of Trump and the people in his administration. The daily barrage of lies followed by his gaslighting from his supporters is only upstaged by his flouting of decorum, undermining of institutions, and the cruelty of his policies. All right? It's essential to remember, however, that Trump has merely perfected the craft of triggering the libs. The political party he commandeered in 2016 has been developing for decades. Republicans, masterful troll of a House hearing on the growing dangers of white supremacy or white supremacist violence on Tuesday serves as perhaps the aptest reminder that the GOP is willing to deny America a sober conversation about anything based on facts. And frankly speaking, I'll say right now, yeah, okay, I would have no problem. I would have no problem having a conversation, a sobering, allegedly sobering conversation about the rise of white supremacy. So let's do that. But do you think that's what we're doing right now? Get out of here. 7:49 in the morning, hit this last break. Come back with a bit more Candace Owens, and then I believe, this is what I'm going to do. Come back with Candace Owens, let her finish the statement out. Then I'm going to roll this into a conversation about reparations in the 8 o'clock hour. And then again, stick around for 9 o'clock, CTT, that's Conspiracy Theory Thursday, asking the questions, is there a law that requires you to pay a federal income tax? That's specifically what I'm talking about. Is there a law that requires you to pay a federal income tax? And more importantly, I suppose, anybody that has a history degree or knows more about this than I might, I know quite a bit about it, I suppose. Was the 16th Amendment actually ratified? Be right back.
Just a song.
Anybody that has a history degree or knows more about this than I might, I know quite a bit about it, I suppose. Hey, that audio's not bad right now. It's better than it was before, right? Threat of white nationalism. Yeah. Shut up, CNN. Is anti-Semitism the same thing as white nationalism? I know it's a dumb question. In the past 2 years, CNN, there's been a number of high-profile incidents involving white nationalists, perhaps most notably the Unite the Right march in Charlottesville, Virginia in August 2017. Talking about the one woman that's killed. Last year's shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh claimed the lives of 11 people. All right, they charged the gunman an avowed white nationalist. Okay, yeah, all right, I guess that makes sense. Anti-Defamation League, what do y'all think about them? You have Mike Lee say no, white supremacy is not the same thing as anti-Semitism. Anti-Defamation League, an organization focused on tracking extremist activity, found last year that white supremacist murders in the U.S. More than doubled in 2017, with far-right extremist groups and white supremacists responsible for 59% of all extremist-related fatalities in the U.S. in 2017. Responsible for 20% of these fatalities the year before. See, that's a difficult thing to break down, man. I mean, I get it, but... Boo-boo! 7:54.
Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, Ross, can I get this computer going here? I think I'm spending the last 4 minutes here just trying to finish out this Candace Owens clip so she can really deliver it home. Here we go.
Fear-mongering, power, and control. It's a preview of the Democrat 2020 election strategy, same as the Democrat 2016 election strategy. They blame Facebook, they blame Google, they blame Twitter. Really, they blame the birth of social media, which has disrupted their monopoly on minds. They called this hearing because they believe that if it wasn't for social media, voices like mine would never exist. That my movement, Blexit, which is inspiring Black Americans to leave the Democrat Party, would have never come about. And they certainly believe that Donald Trump would not be in office today. Looking on the next thing to focus on now that the Russian collusion hoax has fallen apart. What they won't tell you about the statistics and the rise of white nationalism is that they've simply changed the data set points by widening the definition of hate crimes and upping the number of reporting agencies that are able to report on them. What I mean to say is that they're manipulating statistics. The goal here is to scare blacks, Hispanics, gays, and Muslims into helping them censor dissenting opinions, ultimately into helping them regain control of our country's narrative, which they feel that they lost. They feel that President Donald Trump should not have beat Hillary. If they actually were concerned about white nationalism, they would be holding hearings on Antifa, a far-left, violent, white gang who determined one day in Philadelphia in August that I, a black woman, was not fit to sit in a restaurant. They chased me out. They yelled race traitor to a group of black and Hispanic police officers who formed a line to protect me from their ongoing assaults. They threw water at me. They threw eggs at me. And the leftist media remained silent on it.
Yeah, and you hear what she's saying, right? Obviously. The leftist media is not going to cover an African-American woman getting egged by leftist supporters. It's not going to happen. And most certainly when she's being protected by other minorities in doing so. And this, my support for Candace Owens has nothing to do with, I very rarely listen to this lady. I don't think Turning Point, this is just my opinion, my personal opinion, Turning Point is a good introductory material to get your head around possibly some conservative ideas, but frankly speaking, they're not the best debaters. They're not the best orators in my opinion. I can point you to much better argumentation if you really want to shut down a few of these Democratic facts. Turning Point is not one of the best. They're a great organization, but it's not necessarily as deep as I need to go sometimes, so I very rarely listen to her. The point I'm making is, my support for Candace Owens has almost nothing to do with her alleged support for Trump. I honestly don't even know if she's a Trump supporter or not. I assume she's conservative based upon what she's saying right now. My support for her, though, is that she's an individual thinker. That's all that it is. I wouldn't have a problem if she was Howard Schultz either. It's not that I want people specifically to disagree with Alexander Cortez. If you agree with Cortez and you can present a logically cohesive reason as to why, cool. I'll support you. I like Howard Schultz because he comes out and says, bro, I hate Trump as much as the next guy, but Alexander Cortez is crazy for talking about pitching a $93 trillion plan and no way to pay for it. Because he's an individual thinker despite what his cog might tell him. Candace Owens is probably a Trump supporter, but it's not. It's the same thing I said about Kanye West back in the day before he flipped one more time. It has nothing to do with his support or not support for Trump. It has everything to do with your thinking for yourself finally. That's all I've ever asked for in this program. 7:58, news, traffic, weather, all that. Be back with a bit of reparations talk.
Brown skin, you know I love
Facebook, I love you. And you love my singing in the morning time. That's not true at all. Hey, here's what I'm going to leave y'all with. Way to go. Way to go. Here we go. Y'all might have caught some of this yesterday. All right, so let me leave it here. All right. So, this is where we left you yesterday, and I think this would be good to pick it up from here. Christopher Hitchens, y'all know it's C. Hitch, right? That's my boy. He's C. Hitch to the people that know him. That's not true either. Come on, load. All right, here we go. Christopher Hitchens, yesterday, if you didn't pick this up, he left off. He's talking about reparations, whether it should or should not be done in America. I know it's tough to hear, a Brit talk about how to, enact American policy. I hate that as much as everyone else. Nevertheless, anyways, listen to his argument. He starts out by drawing this analogy that, I don't know, man. Hang on here. Let me see if I can figure this out.
To add, though, that as a teacher, I insist that anyone who... all right. and open debate that goes up to make a great university, do you think? Anyone can have thoughts. Many people content themselves with feelings. Begin by a thought experiment, by an argument from analogy, of a case I once put myself in another context. I wrote a book saying that the British Museum should return to Athens the chunks of the sculpture of the Parthenon, sometimes called the Elgin marbles.
All right, there it is. Okay, so the British Museum should return to Athens the chunks of that statue. Okay, right? So the point he's making is, if you can try and make someone whole, it's almost a legal principle, of a contractual principle as well. If you can try and make someone whole, if it makes the situation a little bit better, it's worth fighting for. That's his basic presumption of reparations. It may not be able to fix everything, but it's certainly going to fix something, and we can do it right now. So it's not worth playing out these extreme hypotheticals. It's only worth focusing on what it could be currently doing. Anyways, that's the analogy that he's setting up based upon the British understanding. This is where he goes with America right now.
Great noble Lord Elgin actually sort of rescued the sculpture by stealing it and using it first to decorate his private home and then to make a fortune by selling it. Wouldn't it have maybe it would have been worse off if it had stayed where it was? Well, some of the sculpture that stayed in Athens was very badly treated and has been badly knocked about. And I heard it said this year in an argument about the Confederate flag, no, last year, excuse me, in an argument about the Confederate battle flag in Carolina, I heard it openly said by a spokesman for the Confederacy of our present day, one of whom is now our Attorney General. But he, not that he said this, but partisans of his said this, said, well, how would those Africans have got along if we just left them in West Africa? Didn't we do them a favor? We made them Americans, didn't we? We brought them here. Do they wish they had not been removed? Now, this argument also, I think, shows a very bad conscience. Indeed, I'm going to come back to this argument, by the way. Bear it in mind. Bear in mind what the underlay of this discussion really is. But always notice and pay attention when people appear to be changing the subject and just distracting or trying to redirect your attention to some theoretical or cosmic or abstract injustice that can't be rectified, that's beyond the reach of justice, that's past our power to heal or to alter. In other words, beware when someone tries to make the best the enemy of the good. This is the charge I'm going to make against the good Professor Lowry, whose opening speech I thought was superb. Beware of making the best the enemy of the good. That's where I'll turn to our present case. Review it in the same way. Conduct, if you will, the same thought experiment. Was there an original traceable offense? Was there a taking, a theft, a rape, a dispossession, a confiscation? There isn't a thinking person who can say no to that. The evidence is very clear, and it mounts with every chapter of historical inquiry. Did it consist of, as I say, confiscation? Can it therefore be made good? If not all of it can be made good, can some of it be made good? Can any of it be repaired? Don't make the best the enemy of the good. Is there anything to be rescued from this terrible story? Is there anything that can be done about it once it's been recognized? We cannot possibly undo. I actually don't think we even dare think of the scope of what it would take to imagine undoing the damage done to Africa, especially to West Africa, by the period of colonization, colonial division, plunder, slavery, and rape. We can't undo the enforced underdevelopment of Africa, though we are, you may notice, compelled to keep trying to do that on other fronts all the time and to deal with the consequences of the amputation and dismemberment of Africa in that period. And who would say we shouldn't do that, little enough as it is? Who would say it isn't our responsibility to do that in Africa now as well? I hope none of you would. We can't make up for the Middle Passage, for the uncounted millions of people who were captured and raped and tortured before they even made it across the Atlantic to be other people's property. We can't undo that, but we can refuse, we can decline to forget it. If you really want to think about all the things that can't be redeemed, you'll be in some danger, I think, of weeping. But in my hometown of Washington, D.C., there's hardly one official brick piled on another that wasn't piled there by unpaid labor under the whip And that dead labor becomes dead capital and dead souls, dead money, and it's piled actually in the Treasury Department and the federal financial system, who took that free labor and those dead souls and turned it into capital, and it's back pay, and it's owed, and it's overdue. Now, Professor Lowry, in his very indignant nobility, said that he would repudiate this cash. He'd say, keep your money, you can't buy me like that. I respect him very much for it. I hope he would say that. I would support him in saying it if he would. He can only say it for himself, it seems to me. He misses two opportunities, and I'll have to condense my remarks here. He misses the chance, a very important chance. He doesn't want us to miseducate African Americans to feel dependent, to feel mendicant, to feel entitled. And I see why he says so. He's missing the chance to remind white society of what it does not know. He's missing a chance to challenge the complacency and historical nullity of white society that says we don't owe anyone anything. How dare these people bring all this stuff up? It was too long ago. So when he says keep your damn money, I'm all the way with it, but he can't say keep your damn history, and let's turn that back too. This is America. The right to entitlement, to inheritance, to a share in the common treasury is what defines that. If it has to be fought for in law, so much the worse. But there's no alternative but to fight over it, and if I've done nothing else, I'm sure now every one of you knows that Lord Elgin is pronounced with a hard G. I heard it openly said by a spokesman for the Confederacy of our present day, one of whom is now our Attorney General. But he, not that he said this, but partisans of his said this, said, well, how would those Africans have got along if we just left them in West Africa? Didn't we do them well? Some of the sculpture that stayed in Athens was very badly treated, and has been badly knocked about. And it was said, well, didn't the great noble Lord Elgin actually sort of rescue the sculpture by stealing it and using it first to decorate his private home and then to make a fortune by selling it? Wouldn't it have maybe it have been worse off if it had stayed where it was? Well, some of the sculpture that stayed in Athens was very badly treated and has been badly knocked about. And I heard it said this year in an argument about not go along if we just left them in West Africa. Here, do they wish they had not been removed? Back to this argument, by the way. Bear in mind what the underlay of this discussion really is. But always notice and pay attention when people appear to be changing the subject and distracting or trying to redirect your attention to some theoretical or cosmic or abstract injustice that can't be rectified, that's beyond the reach of justice, that's past our power to heal or to alter. In other words, beware when someone tries to make the best the enemy of the good. This is the charge and words. Theodore indeed moved. Left them in, partisans of his said this, said, well, but he, not that he said this, but part of whom is now our Attorney General, for the battle flag. Confederate flag, no, knocked about. And I heard it said this, some of the sculpture that stayed in Athens was very badly treated, and has been bad.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, all those in between, to Talk Radio 92.3 FM and AM 760. If you're listening to my voice on the FM waves and you're driving through this state, you know, maybe you're a trucker on your way through, you just so happen to stumble upon this show. If you drive out of range, check out the AM 760. Also, as most people are doing now, get our fantastic app. Just type in Talk Radio 92.3 Knoxville, Talk Radio 92.3 Knoxville into your app search bar. That's Google or Apple, or if you're... Does Windows even make a phone now anymore? I don't know. Maybe they do. Does Amazon even have an operating system? I don't know. Maybe they do. It's basically Android or Apple now is what, 99% of the market. Either way, you'll find it there. I think we're on TuneIn Radio and all that stuff as well. The app's a cool thing. Actually, I say this sometimes too. Speaking, I'll get to that in a second. Yeah, I was in Walgreens the other day, and I saw one of these things I talk about all the time. I think it was in the on sale section. These little Bluetooth FM transmitters are just fantastic things. So if you have a smartphone, if you got an old school car like I do, doesn't really matter. Just go to Walgreens or anywhere else. You can find them on Amazon too if you want one of these high-end tech ones that I have. But they're real simple things. They're called Bluetooth FM transmitters, and any audio that comes out of your phone will now come out of an FM frequency that you choose on your car. So the way you can set it up is you can download our app. I have my car tuned to 107.1. It usually is the FM station around here that doesn't pick up much static or anything. And then any audio I play out of my phone comes through the FM frequency in my car. It's really cool. So regardless of where I'm driving, even if I'm in, I don't know, Montana or Wisconsin for some reason, I don't know why I'd be there, but let's say I am, I can still listen in whatever car I'm in through the FM on this station. So pretty cool thing. And also the app has actually the best audio quality for you. Bro, I was going to get this computer going here. All right, so finish this out. Here's a bit of Candace Owens. I'm going to play some more of Candace Owens going off on some of these legislators as well. And then we're going to get into the conversation of reparations. Played a bit of this for Facebook during the break. They already have some pretty strong opinions about this. Anything I'm talking about today, you have an opinion on. 865-888-TALK. That's 865-888-8255. Here's some more Candace Owens.
If they were serious about the rise of hate crimes, they may perhaps be examining themselves and the hate that they have drummed up in this country. Bottom line is that white supremacy, racism, white nationalism, words that once held real meaning, have now become nothing more than election strategies. Every 4 years, the black community is offered handouts and fear. Handouts and fear. Reparations and white nationalism. This is the Democrat preview. Of course, society is not perfectible. We've heard testimony of that today. There are pockets of evil that exist, and those things are horrible, and they should be condemned. But I believe the legacy and the ancestry of black Americans is being insulted every single day. I will not pretend to be a victim in this country, and I know that makes many people on the left uncomfortable. I want to talk about real issues in black America. I want to talk about real issues in this country and real concerns. The biggest scandal, this is my last sentence, in American politics is that Democrats have been conning minorities into the belief that we are perpetual victims, all but ensuring our failure. Racial division and class warfare are central to the Democrat Party platform.
All right, so that's a bit of our opening statement. Now, this next clip that I'm playing here is when stuff gets a little bit heated, if it wasn't already.
I think it's pretty apparent that Mr. Liu believes that black people are stupid and will not pursue the full clip in its entirety. He purposely presented an extracted clip.
The witness will suspend for a moment. It is not proper to refer disparagingly or to a member of the committee. The witness will not do that again. Witness may continue.
All right, now this is Nadler. Now, you don't know what set this up. I'm going to play what set this up here in a minute. This is Nadler telling her that she can't refer disparagingly to a member of Congress, yet she was just referred disparagingly to here, and just I'll play this. Listen.
Sure, even though I was called despicable.
Witness may not refer to a member of the committee as stupid.
I didn't refer to him as stupid. That's not what I said. That's not what I said at all. You didn't listen to what I said. All
right, now that part right there you can't hear. I have to play a little bit of radio theater for you. Candace Owens says to Nadler, that's not what I said at all. You didn't refer to what I said. And Nadler just gives this shrug like, meh, whatever, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I'm referring to what you actually said or not. Meh, I don't care.
Continue?
Please.
As I said.
Of all the people the Republicans could have selected.
All right, now here's Representative Liu. This is what he plays to try and attack Candace Owens with.
They picked Candace Owens. I don't know Miss Owens. I'm not going to characterize her. I'm going to let her own words do the talking. So I'm going to play for you the first 30 seconds of a statement she made about Adolf Hitler.
I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. Problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German.
All right, so my first question is to Ms. Hirschenoff. Ms. Owens said, quote, if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. So when people try to legitimize Adolf Hitler, does that feed into white nationalist ideology?
No, he goes and played the entire recording here, and why is this fast forwarding so quick? Stop this. Hang on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would yield my time to Mr. Reschenthaler from Pennsylvania.
Thank you. Ms. Owens, I'm sorry, we just started recording. Would you like time to respond to that?
Yes, I think it's pretty apparent that Mr. Liu believes that black people are stupid and will not pursue the full clip in its entirety. He purposely presented an extracted clip.
The witness will suspend for a moment. It is not proper to refer disparagingly or to a member of the committee. The witness will not do that again. Witness may continue.
Sure, even though I was called despicable.
Witness may not refer to a member of the committee as stupid.
I didn't refer to him as stupid. That's not what I said. That's not what I said at all. You didn't listen to what I said.
She said she was called stupid, Nadler. She was called stupid. She was called despicable. And now you're not giving her the ability to defend the statement itself. You're not even giving her the ability to defend being called stupid and despicable. You understand what I said before? This is where Nadler gets wrapped up in this entire thing of, you just called an African-American woman despicable and stupid, and you have to subscribe to the rules of the left, and now you're not allowing an African-American woman who was just called despicable and stupid to defend the stance that she's not stupid or despicable.
May I continue?
Please.
As I said, he is assuming that black people will not go pursue the full 2-hour clip. And he purposefully he cut off, and you didn't hear the question that was asked of me. He's trying to present as if I was launching a defense of Hitler in Germany, when in fact, the question that was asked of me was pertaining to whether or not I believed that whether or not I believed in nationalism, and that nationalism was bad. And what I responded to was that I do not believe that we should be characterizing Hitler as a nationalist. He was a homicidal, psychopathic maniac that killed his own people. A nationalist would not kill their own people. That is exactly what I was referring to in the clip, and he purposely wanted to give you a cut-up similar to what they do to Donald Trump to create a different narrative. That was unbelievably dishonest, and he did not allow me to respond to it, which is worrisome and should tell you a lot about where people are today in terms of trying to drum up narratives. By the way, I would like to also add that I work for Prager University, which is run by an Orthodox Jew. When a single Democrat showed up to the embassy opening in Jerusalem, I sat on a plane for 8 hours to make sure that I was there. I'm deeply offended by the insinuation of revealing that clip without the question that was asked of me.
Just silence.
Thanks, Mrs. Owens, and I yield the remainder of my time.
I love that it was set up that way, too. Hey, I got some time to ask you questions here. Instead of doing that, let's just let you run off the rails for a second. Oh, by the way, I work for an Orthodox Jew. You think I'm a Hitler supporter at the same time? And I work for an Orthodox Jew? I mean, and this is what part of the purpose of Real News is. To try and cut through, like you say all the time, like you hear on some of these promos all the time, like you'll see in our Patreon page, to try and cut through some of this, what I call nonsensical minutia that saturates mainstream media. It's nothing new. It's not. It's not anything new. But social media, the interconnectivity that we all have right now, the instantaneous Twitter feeds that everyone has, it only further divides. And it only further throws fuel on this fire to make us even more divisive than we were before. And that's what's so troubling about all this stuff right now is that, a lot of this conversation has been brought up in the realm of white nationalism and nationalism in general, and white supremacy and identitarianism. If you don't know what identitarianism is, it's not worth going into right now. But it's the only thing that's being publicized on. It's the only thing the media is covering. The media doesn't want to cover situations where racism is not happening. It doesn't sell well. The media doesn't want to cover situations where Real News has Roz's friends in here for an entire hour. An African-American lesbian couple, and we have genuine open conversations about what that is. We have genuine open conversations about our agreements, about our disagreements, about moral issues, ethical issues, about the way that the government operates in their lives, the way the government shouldn't operate in their lives, how they want the government to operate in their lives. The media doesn't want to cover that story. The media doesn't want to cover the story that I am very, very close friends with an African-American lesbian couple. They don't want to do that because it destroys their narrative. A white man hosting a conservative talk radio show, one of the most conservative talk radio shows in this state, most certainly in this area, if not the only political talk radio show in this area, let's be frank. Yeah, I said it. They don't want to cover the fact that I'm on here having a conversation openly with two African-American females who are in a relationship with each other, and we love each other. They don't want to cover that. Why? Because they would have nothing left to talk about anymore. They wouldn't. They wouldn't. Because there's people like me, there's people that listen to this show, there's the Cool Kids table at Facebook that all agree on that one fundamental, genuine principle, that there is a spark of divinity in the other human being sitting across the table from me. And above all else, I will recognize that. Above all else, I will recognize that. Forget about my Constitution if I have to. I don't care. I will recognize your personal self-worth foremost. 8:20, hit this break, come back, conversation about reparations.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Reparations. Yes. Do you support reparations for black people? There are a number of candidates that are talking about reparations. Yes. Do you support reparations for black people? I support reparations. I support economically designed programs with race as a conscious part of them that balance the scales and address past ills, not just slavery, but even things that were going on until the 50s, 60s, and 70s that were specifically race-conscious programs that were designed to disadvantage African Americans. So if you have programs that were designed to create the problems by excluding African Americans in housing, in mortgage loans, in access to capital, we need to have things with race in mind that are conscious to balance those scales and address those past ills.
What does that plan look like, and what are you proposing to do to explore reparations for black people?
Well, I don't have all the answers, and I think that we should pull the best minds in America together to do them. So there's a bill you've heard mentioned a lot, H.R. 40. Well, we're announcing today that I am going to be the Senate champion, the Senate sponsor of the H.R. 40 bill in the Senate. I'm proud to be the person, and we've been working on this for a long time, to bring together the best minds to now support the Senate companion and hopefully get this bill passed into law. But I'm not waiting, because there's a lot of folks in my neighborhood who want the scales balanced now. And that's why I've been pushing a lot of legislation with specifically, as I designed it, to deal with these inequities. We need to figure out what the larger plan is. That's why I'm leading on the Senate version for H.R. 40. But right now, again, people in my community don't have time to wait. My baby bonds plan, which would, there are no,
In 60, I'm just a phone call or email away. Call me at 865-525-0620 or email me at jadams@Moffit, Moffit media.com.
Thursday! Listen to me! It's Thursday, I swear!
Many suggestions and
8:24 in the morning.
Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we are talking a little bit of reparations right now. Yes, Julian Assange has been arrested. Also, William Barr testimony yesterday and the day before. I'm not touching those right now because there's still stuff developing in the Assange story. And the William Barr story is nothing's really groundbreaking there. It's just one more piece of evidence that could lend credence to the Republican arguments of there was nothing with the Russia story. There's something much more with the story that happened behind the Russia story. Again, none of it's new. It's just William Barr saying the same things we all already knew. That's worthwhile. It is. It's just not worth right now because there's a bunch of other stuff going on, taking up, the next hour and a half that I have here. Or rather, just half an hour because we have a CTT, that's Conspiracy Theory Thursday. All right, Facebook audio is good to go. Here we go. Let's introduce this topic. 865-888-TALK. That's 865-888-8255. Facebook's going right now, too. If I could figure out how to get my internet to work. Whatever, man. I'll figure this out in a minute. Bro, is this computer good here? Yeah? She says, yeah. All right, so Candace Owens gave a talk in front of committee members there. She brought up reparations a little bit, and the reason why she was bringing it up, and not necessarily she didn't bring it up necessarily, she was responding to people like Cory Booker and the others. Here's Cory Booker.
There are a number of candidates that are talking about reparations. Yes. Do you support reparations for black people?
I support reparations. I support economically designed programs with race as a conscious part of them that balance the scales and address past ills, not just slavery, but even things that were going on until the 50s, 60s, in 70s that were specifically race-conscious programs that were designed to disadvantage African Americans. So if you have programs that were designed...
No, I'm gonna say this 2 or 3 times, and it's important that I'm setting it up this way. The reason why I bring up reparations today so early on is because you're going to hear much more about this, but the obvious first square that people are going to jump to is, all right, man, where's that threshold? Where's the line that we draw? Where's the reasonable line that we won't go past anymore? And I'm talking chronologically. Is it the Civil Rights Act that we don't consider anything past the Civil Rights Act? Is it where do we consider the line being drawn about did you actually own slaves? Did you not own slaves? If that's what we're talking about, what do you go by way of genealogy? How do you possibly even test for that? There's just such a myriad of hypothetical questions that you could potentially pose out here and string out here that could be all encompassing for everybody. Now, what does Larry Sharpe say? And I don't know where Larry Sharpe gets this stat from. Maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong, but he's wrong. But he says something all the time to the effect of that less than 5% of black people in America right now were actually slaves before, or sorry, has any connection, genealogical connection to being slaves in the past. I don't know if that's correct or not. I just know that's the stat he throws out before. So then what you're saying is, well, what about the other 95% of black people that are here now? Do they also get some form of reparations? Because Cory Booker's talking about on into, say, the 50s and 60s, which would, technically speaking, I suppose, statistically speaking, encompass 80, 90% of it. You hear what I'm saying? It becomes a very confusing conversation, which sets up the Christopher Hitchens argument that I'm going to make here in a second, because the only reason why I'm playing 30 more seconds of Cory Booker here is because he doesn't make a lot of sense. He doesn't give you a lot of things to grasp onto as far as, okay, practically speaking, Cory, how do we handle this? How do we handle this? Now, to his credit, he's not exactly asking for reparations right now. He's asking for some type of oversight committee to consider or plan for or research or look into how this would happen. 30 more seconds, Booker.
To create the problems by excluding African Americans in housing, in mortgage loans, in access to capital, we need to have things with race in mind that are conscious to balance those scales and address those past ills.
What does that plan look like, and what are you proposing to do to explore reparations for black people?
Well, I don't have all the answers, and I think that we should pull the best minds in America together to do them. So there's a bill you've heard mentioned a lot, H.R. 40. Well, we're announcing today that I'm going to be the Senate champion, the Senate sponsor of H.R. 40 bill in the Senate. I'm proud to be the person, and we've been working on this for a long time, to bring together the best minds to now support the Senate companion and hopefully get this bill passed into law. But I'm not waiting, because there's a lot of folks in my neighborhood who want the scales balanced now. And that's why I've been pushing a lot of legislation with specifically as I designed it to deal with these inequities. We need to figure out what the larger plan is. That's why I'm leading on the Senate version for H.R. 40. But right now, again, people in my community don't have time to wait.
All right, so with that being said, this leads perfectly into the Christopher Hitchens argument here. All right, and let's see, where did this go? Norm is saying on Facebook here, more people are disadvantaged by socioeconomics of their parents independent of race. Now, what he's saying, I believe, what the point that Norm is making is this alleged white privilege. You don't see that in the Appalachian Mountains, right? You don't see that in West Virginia. You don't see that in these towns that are just run over by the opioid crisis right now. It doesn't matter your race, man. Opioids take over everybody. Socioeconomics being what they are is not necessarily... The money does not discriminate against race. It just simply doesn't. The lack of money, I would suppose, doesn't discriminate against race either. I mean, when you really boil it down, now you might say there's white privilege here, there's white privilege there, whatever. The point I'm making is there's a lot of poor white people. There's the whole redneck principle. You get what I'm saying? Kelly says balance the scales by giving people money. Giving people money they didn't earn. Chris says reparations won't end until there is socialist income equality. Sorry, let me say that again. Reparations won't end until there's socialist income equality. That's the real goal. Reparations is just an emotional focus to start that process. Now, with all that being said, we got a minute or two left before I got to hit this first break. Let me set this up by Christopher Hitchens. It's a little bit we have to get through here. What Christopher Hitchens sets up here, and again, Christopher Hitchens is, fill in the blank, and Christopher Hitchens is probably that. I've said it before. He's a social critic. He's a philosopher. He's a New York Times bestselling author. He's just everything, man. He's just an intelligent guy. I think was an intelligent guy. Is he passed away? I'm pretty sure he passed, right, Facebook? Someone will tell me. I'm pretty sure he passed. This is from 2001. This sets up the analogy he's drawing from his own culture and why it makes sense in America. And this is the only version, I'm not saying it's reasonable, but it's the only version of what I would consider to be an intellectual argument for reparations that I've been able to find. And I really want to get Real News' opinion on this, okay? About a minute here so we can set up the analogy. Sorry, 2 minutes possibly. Here we go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I hope I can say. Comrades and friends, I might go so far. I should say first, I think it's very impressive and rather encouraging that so many people would come out on such a beautiful evening to discuss and debate such a serious and pressing subject. I should add, though, that as a teacher, I insist that anyone who has been told by the professor that they have to be here leaves now. I will not speak to captive audiences. That's good, then. All right. Further to the principles of free inquiry and open debate that go up to make a great university, my view is and will always be that it matters not what you think. Anyone can have thoughts. Many people content themselves with feelings. It matters how you think. So since the case has been so well phrased by my predecessor speakers, I thought I might just begin by a thought experiment, by an argument from analogy, of a case I once put myself in another context. I wrote a book saying that the British Museum should return to Athens the chunks of the sculpture of the Parthenon, sometimes called the Elgin marbles, always pronounced wrongly in this country. It was Lord Elgin, in fact, hard G, that they had annexed in the 18th century. That it didn't make any sense that the sculpture should be separated. It was carved as a unity. That the original crime was the desecration of a great historic culture and a great historic temple. A gross insult to an entire culture and society, the Greeks. The amputation of an organic and aesthetic whole. A theft, a rape, a taking, perpetrated by the strong upon the weak.
Okay, so we got to hit this break right now, but you understand the analogy he's setting up here, okay? He's basically saying our culture, we have dealt with something very similar. And I made an argument that we should try and make that wrong whole. That wrong, leave a blank, whole again. Do you know what I'm saying? It was a theft, it was a perversion of a culture, it was a taking, it was a rape, and there's something we can do to make that right again currently now. Now, the point he proves later on is what I want the reaction from Real News audience. 8:33, hit this break, be back on this for the next 2 segments.
Slavery is a very big subject. I have in my home an entire bookcase of nothing things but books about slavery in various parts of the world, various times of history. And the sad fact is that slavery has been a universal...
No, we're only started on
reparations.
Oh, okay, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meaning, what is this? Slavery?
Yeah, that might work.
White privilege? We owe them something?
Yeah, that's probably better, yeah. You got some other white privilege songs?
I do, but I have reparation songs too.
There's reparation songs?
I've been playing them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
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 All right, play some more of those.
Right, like this guy just said he's got a list of demands. This Saul Williams. Kind of a cool song, but it sounds like an angry black man.
My goodness.
Okay. I mean, he does.
I feel you.
Sue me, because I have an opinion.
Are you gaslighting me?
See?
All right, cool.
All right, yeah. Word up.
From the Fox Business Network.
The sculpture should be separated. It was carved as a unity. That the sculptist in the 18th country, it was Lord Elgin, in fact, RG, that they had annexed in the 18th country the sculpture of the Parthenon, sometimes returned in another context. There's an order to come and make a claim. That could be made. And a real injustice, that could be repaired. I think I know why. I think I feel the itchings and prickings of a bad conscience behind this kind and mode of argument. Then it was said, well, didn't the... I think I've be made. And a real injustice, mentioning this when there's a real case to press a claim. It is, more people it is. The Rosetta Stone and the pharaonic material there is probably Babylonians. I said, well, the Babylonians are not that deserves to be, I think, treated with great scorn. A nasty combination, actually, of self-pity and self-hate. A rather nasty combination, actually, of self-pity and self-hatred among white Americans that deserves to be, I think, treated with great scorn. I'd rather not. I can help the Comanches get there. You know how it goes.
Universal institution for thousands of years, as far back as you could trace human history. And what we're looking at is if slavery is something that happened to one race of people in one country, when in fact the spread of it was around the world. In 1776, which is when Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations, as well as when the United States got started, he said that Western Europe is the only place in the world where there is no slavery. And even the Western Europeans had vast numbers of slaves in the Western Hemisphere, yes, but not in Western Europe itself. And so if you're going to have reparations for slavery, it's going to be the greatest transfer of wealth back and forth. And between and cross hauling, as they say in the railroads, because the number of whites, for example, who were enslaved in North Africa by the Barbary pirates exceeded the number of Africans enslaved in the United States and in the American colonies before that, put together. I know, but nobody is going to North Africa to ask for reparations because nobody is going to be fool enough to give it to them. Here we have intellectuals who can imagine a different history from the rest of the world, even though it's so similar to the rest of the world. I went to the University of Chicago as a Marxist after a year of studying under
Economic Facts and Fallacies, quote, some things are believed because they are demonstrably true, but many other things are believed simply because they have been asserted repeatedly, close quote. You wish to let that gloomy observation on human nature stand?
Yes.
Hey, 8:38. Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. All right, if you just joined us, what we're talking about a little bit here is reparations. I just played some clips of. Hang on.
Facebook there, audio's a bit better. I just played some clips of Cory Booker. Let me pick this back up where Christopher Hitchens is taking it from. If you have an opinion on this at all, 865-888-TALK, 865-888-8255. Yeah, and it's just interesting. Actually, this is very interesting that the point that Heather's bringing up on Facebook, and this is where I said too. Once you start talking about reparations, either in America or elsewhere, you start jumping into this realm of the sort of the what ifs. Now, that's not to say it's a logical fallacy. That's very important. To play out hypotheticals is a very, very important thing. Frankly speaking, that's a lot of what the Supreme Court deals with. If you ever listen to oral arguments with the Supreme Court, I find it fascinating, and I think most people would find it fascinating, not because it's a legalese thing. No, it's not. It's fascinating because anytime there's a piece of legislation proposed or anytime there's an oral argument held in front of the Supreme Court, a lot of what the Supreme Court justices are doing are asking these wildly outlandish hypothetical questions, which, frankly speaking, could probably never happen. But what they're trying to do is pinpoint the threshold upon which this ruling would apply to. And I guess that's all Heather's doing as well on Facebook here when she asked this question of, when we're talking about reparations, she didn't say this, but she responds by saying, are the Egyptians going to, where does it go? Are the Egyptians going to pay the Jews, the Germans, so many others? And that's exactly what I feel that Christopher Hitchens is addressing here and this is why I said this is the only logical argument that I've been able to find as to pertaining to that particular question. So let me set this up again, the analogy he's drawing, which makes sense to America, and then I'll let it play out from here. Here's the analogy he's drawing from where he comes from.
I wrote a book saying that the British Museum should return to Athens the chunks of the sculpture of the Parthenon, sometimes called the Elgin marbles, always pronounced wrongly in this country. It was Lord Elgin, in fact, hard G, that they had annexed in the 18th century. They didn't make any sense that the sculpture should be separated. It was carved as a unity. That the original crime was the desecration of a great historic culture and a great historic temple. A gross insult to an entire culture and society, the Greeks, the amputation of an organic and aesthetic whole, a theft, a rape, a taking, perpetrated by the strong upon the weak. By the way, this was all done at the same time as the British fleet, Her Majesty's fleet, was also the military guarantor of the slave trade, of the triangular trade of the Atlantic and the Middle Passage. Now, the points I made on this, how justice could be done, how reparation could be made, how a wrong once inflicted could be restored, made good, I could well buttress by fact and could do so now if I was challenged.
All right, so he uses that situation to set up what he's about to go on. Okay, so this is why it makes sense in my culture, he's basically saying. This is the argument that I've made before about something that's not necessarily directly applicable to, or the correlation is not exactly drawn to the American version of slavery, but it at least sets up the scenario by which we could have a conversation with this, okay? A wrong happened, a taking, a rape, a perversion of that society by another society. And we have the opportunity now in our current culture to try and somehow make that right. Or at least what he's really saying is at least make it a little bit better than it was before. And if we can make it, and I'm not advocating necessarily for one side or the other here. I'm not. This is Mr. Henry being pure Mr. Henry, which I know frustrates y'all, but this is me being pure Mr. Henry, just trying to pose the objective, reasonable argument that some might make, reasonable they say, for why reparations should be considered in America. It's the only reasonable one I've heard. Reasonable in the sense that it's logically cohesive. That means in and of itself, the argument, the syllogism does make sense. If you were to grant the original premise, the final conclusion by itself does make sense if you were to grant the original premise, okay? So here's how he says it makes sense to America.
A rather nasty combination, actually, of self-pity and self-hatred among white Americans that deserves to be, I think, treated with great scorn. I was told, well, what about the Babylonians? I said, well, the Babylonians are not going to come and make a claim. The stuff from Babylon in the British Museum is probably best off where it is. The Rosetta Stone and the pharaonic material there is probably best off where it is. More people will see it.
Okay, so already he's setting this up, and already he's answering the question. Where did this go? Hang on. Chris is making some good comments. Eric's making some good comments. I'll get back to that in a second. Where did this comment go? This is great radio right now. Anyways, already he's answering that question of how far does this go? Right, like what was said before in Facebook. Are we going to have Egyptians paying Jews? Germans, I mean, how long does this go? He's already setting up the answer to that question of, well, we have to deal with this in a practical realm. Again, one more time, this is not my argument. I'm trying to make this make sense for Christopher Hitchens. We have to deal in the practical realm of what can be done. The Babylonians are not going to come back and make claims. They're not. However, some of these other people might. Continue.
And there are no pharaonic Egyptians to press a claim either. Why are you mentioning this when there's a real case before you that could be made, and a real injustice that could be repaired? I think I know why. I think I feel the...
This is where you're not going to like this part, but listen to it.
...and prickings of a bad conscience behind this kind and mode of argument. Then it was said, well, didn't the great noble Lord Elgin actually sort of rescue the sculpture by stealing it and using it first to decorate his private home and then to make a fortune by selling it? Wouldn't it have maybe it have been worse off if it had stayed where it was? Well, some of the sculpture that stayed in Athens was very badly treated and has been badly knocked about. And I heard it said this year in an argument about the Confederate flag, no, last year, excuse me, in an argument about the Confederate battle flag in Carolina, I heard it openly said by a spokesman for the Confederacy of our present day, one of whom is now our Attorney General.
This is in 2001, by the way, just to give you some historical context. When he's saying now our Attorney General, it's 2001.
But he, not that he said this, but partisans of his said this, said, well, how would those Africans have got along if we just left them in West Africa? Didn't we do them a favor? We made them Americans, didn't we? We brought them here. Do they wish they had not been removed? Now, this argument also, I think, shows a very bad conscience. Indeed, I'm going to come back to this argument, by the way. Bear it in mind. Bear in mind what the underlay of this discussion really is. But always notice and pay attention when people appear to be changing the subject and just distracting or trying to redirect your attention to some theoretical or cosmic or abstract injustice that can't be rectified, that's beyond the reach of justice, that's part
that he's about to say is essentially what I deemed the entire crux of his argument. This is what he's trying to respond from the Real News audience, either in Facebook, on the app, whatever else. Crown Plaza call number 865-888-TALK, 865-888-8255. Listen to this.
Heal, alter. In other words, beware when someone the enemy of the good. This is the charge I'm going to make against the good Professor Lowry, whose opening speech I thought was superb. Beware of making the best the enemy of the good. That's where I'll turn to our present case. Review it in the same way. Conduct, if you will, the same thought experiment. Was there an original traceable offense? Was there a taking, a theft, a rape, a dispossession, a confiscation? There isn't a thinking person who can say no to that. The evidence is very clear, and it mounts with every chapter of historical inquiry. Did it consist of, as I say, a confiscation? Can it therefore be made good? If not all of it can be made good, can some of it be made good?
You hear what he's saying? And unless I'm misinterpreting, Christopher Hitchens is a guy who has an intellect far superior to mine. And most of what this guy says, I'll be honest with y'all right now, most of what this guy says goes way over my head. But I think I'm following along when he says, beware of making the best the enemy of the good. What he means is playing out these hypotheticals of reaching the ultimate threshold of covering everybody potentially involved in reparations. If that's your goal, that can potentially become the enemy of doing something good for the people that we can actually do something good for right now. One final time, this is not Mr. Henry's argument. It's the only reasonable one I've heard of trying to actually institute reparations. Cory Booker is not going to make this for me. But if we can get our head around the best version of this argument, when we actually are talking with our Democrat friends that will espouse something like this, if you don't agree with this principle, you at least know what you're fighting about. Very clear principle in law school. You cannot start to make an argument unless you fully understand the counter-argument. You cannot start to make an argument unless you fully understand what you're arguing against. Let him continue here.
Any of it be repaired. Don't make the best the enemy of the good. Is there anything to be rescued from this terrible story? Is there anything that can be done about it once it's been recognized?
All right, we're going to hit this break coming up right now. I'm going to come back with a little bit more of this, and that's the basic question that's posed. When we're talking about reparations, when everybody ends up talking about reparations, I'm assuming this can be a very hot topic issue going forward. And it's not like it's going to be grandstanding. It will. I don't think anyone, even Cory Booker included, if I'm being honest with you, I don't think anybody is actually seriously considering trying to put some piece of legislation on the books about reparations. I don't. But it will be one of those arguments that has a lot of emotional heartstrings attached to it, and they will pull and pull on those until there's nothing left to pull, which means it's going to encompass a large portion of debates and dialogue as it's going forward. You'll start to see this. Once they run out of stuff to knock Trump on, and once they start pitching these socialist ideas that are coupled with the $93 trillion price tag, they're going to start running out of things of not just free stuff to give, but free stuff that's coupled with a moral element behind it. That's the best type of free stuff. Free stuff that you deserve, right? It's hard to pitch an idea that you deserve free college. It's very hard. It's not as hard to pitch an idea that you deserve free healthcare. It's still pretty tough. For those that have suffered some injustice, some rape, some taking, as Christopher Hitchens saying in the past, it's much, much easier to couple this alleged free stuff now that they are owed due to a moral component. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why I think this is going to be a big talking point going forward. Hit this break, be back with about 30 seconds more of Hitchens, and then see if we can get some response from Real News audience. Be right back.
Undo. I actually don't think we even dare think of the scope of what it would take to imagine undoing the damage done to Africa, especially to West Africa, by the period of colonization, colonial division, plunder, slavery, and rape. We can't undo the enforced underdevelopment of Africa, though we are, you may notice, compelled to keep trying to do that on other fronts all the time, and to deal with the consequences of the amputation and dismemberment of Africa in that period. And who would say we shouldn't do that, little enough as it is? Who would say it isn't our responsibility to do that in Africa now as well? I hope none of you would. We can't make up for the Middle Passage, for the uncounted millions of people who were captured and raped and tortured before they even made it across the Atlantic to be other people's property. We can't undo that, but we can refuse, we can decline to forget it. If you really want to think about all the things that can't be redeemed, you'll be in some danger, I think, of weeping. But in my hometown of Washington, D.C., there's hardly one official brick piled on another that wasn't piled there by unpaid labor under the whip. And that dead labor becomes dead capital and dead souls, dead money, and it's piled actually in the Treasury Department and the federal financial system, who took that free labor and those dead souls and turned it into capital, and it's back pay, and it's owed, and it's overdue. Now, Professor Lowry, in his very indignant nobility, said that he would repudiate this cash. He'd say, keep your money, you can't buy me like that. I respect him very much for it. I hope he would say that. I would support him in saying it if he would. He can only say it for himself, it seems to me. He misses two opportunities, and I'll have to condense my remarks here. He misses the chance, a very important chance. He doesn't want us to miseducate African Americans to feel dependent, to feel mendicant, to feel entitled. And I see why he says so. He's missing the chance to remind white society of what it does not know. He's missing a chance to challenge the complacency and historical nullity of white society that says we don't owe anyone anything. How dare these people those dead souls in that town of Washington, D.C., to forget it.
No problem.
If you really want to think about all the things that can decline, to forget it.
Who need reparation. Yes. Lot of struggle we're going through slavery.
Yes.
And we get reparation. The slavery, the more bodies, more out.
True.
And we're going clear.
Ah, Grandpa.
Yes.
So true what you say.
Praises, son.
Praises.
An ever-blazing production.
Enough of them now go like a tune, you know. For real. But I never too care. Not care about them. Because, see me shocking, Murray. I'm not in this business for fame nor fortune. Better know, I'm in this business for the upliftment of my people. That's right. And to spread the love and the joy. Yeah. They took me from the east and carry down in the west. How can we forget? How can we forget? We built the economy, blood, tears and sweat. How can they forget? How can we forget? That's why me a chant reparation, reparation. We want a reparation, and don't come tell me say we wrong. We are chant now reparation, reparation.
Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Talking a little bit of reparations, obviously, as the intro music would let you know. I'll play 20 seconds more of Christopher Hitchens here. Kelly saying in Facebook, the topic hurts my brain. Yeah, mine too. Here we go, Chris.
If you really want to think about all the things that can't be redeemed, you'll be in some danger, I think, of weeping. But in my hometown of Washington, D.C., there's hardly one official brick piled on another that wasn't piled there by unpaid labor under the whip. And that dead labor becomes dead capital and dead souls, dead money, and it's piled actually in the Treasury Department and the federal financial system, who took that free labor and those dead souls and turned it into capital, and it's back pay, and it's owed, and it's overdue. Now, Professor Lowry, in his very indignant nobility, said that he would repudiate this cash. He'd say, keep your money, you can't buy me like that. I respect him very much for it. I hope he would say that. I would support him in saying it if he would. He can only say it for himself, it seems to me. He misses two opportunities, and I'll have to condense my remarks here. He misses the chance, a very important chance. He doesn't want us to miseducate African Americans to feel dependent, to feel mendicant, to feel entitled. And I see why he says so. He's missing the chance to remind white society of what it does not know. He's missing a chance to challenge the complacency and historical nullity of white society that says we don't owe anyone anything.
All right, see, that is a very, very important distinction that Christopher Hitchens is making. In my opinion, truly the epicenter of this argument. When he said that what may inevitably end up happening is if we do some version of reparations, we are therefore reaffirming, you follow what I'm saying? We are reaffirming that marginalized minorities in this country need somebody else. And this is not just Christopher Hitchens. This actually comes by way of dicta or dictum, if you're depending on if it's a singular or plural. It's basically legal terminology that means it's not. It's in the text itself, but it's what is it? It's a statement of opinion, certainly, that's considered authoritative, although it's not binding. It's given recognized authoritativeness of the person who pronounced it. So some Supreme Court justice will put something called dicta in an opinion. It's not the reason why they made the decision they did, and you can't cite to it like other historical precedents you can, but it's worth considering. You get what I'm saying? So the Supreme Court, when they were talking about affirmative action cases, have said America does have something to pay for. Something. It's coming from the Supreme Court again. Not my opinion, just Supreme Court's opinion. At least for the sake of this segment here. That frankly speaking, African Americans in this country have not been full-on legitimate citizens in all 50 states until arguably into the 60s or 40s. Yes, I'm talking about the civil rights movement. With Jim Crow and everything else, not able to own property, not able to vote in certain areas, things like that. So they have had a substantial lack of ability to be true citizens. Now, with that being said, they did say, Supreme Court Justice did say, after a while, this is going to have to stop, lest you lend credence to the idea that they need something they can't do on their own. That's what Christopher Hitchens is talking about. And the interesting thing that he brought up there before is that misses the point for white people to prove to other white people that you do have something to be held responsible for. Now, this is where most Caucasians I know get frustrated. They ask themselves, me? I, personally? I have something to be responsible for? That's what all this is centered around. Just want to know what you think. 8:58. Hit this break right now. Come back talking something very, very interesting. 16th Amendment. Is there a law that says you have to pay federal income tax? Be back with all this.
All right, Facebook. I'm pretty sure I got Arnold Cohn in studio here. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll leave you with a bit of the documentary I'm going to pull from. If y'all want to watch this entire thing, it might be worth doing so. The producer of Trading Places movie, I want to say it's from the 80s. Remember, it's with Eddie Murphy and, who's the other guy from SNL? You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, the producer of that movie made this documentary. It's called America, Freedom to Fascism. Here we go. That's a little bit of what we're going to be talking about next.
No, Jeff. No. I've been just movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and The Rose with Bette Midler, many movies. I'm doing a feature film. And my film is about my quest to find out whether or not people pay income taxes. Do you pay an income tax?
Yes, I do.
You do? Yeah. Have you ever seen the law?
Is he in studio?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'll be back in a second.
Law that requires you to pay an income tax?
Have I ever read it? You mean in the page in black and white? No.
So you pay the income tax, I assume? Of late. Well, actually, no, I didn't file last year, but, I'm sorry, is this on film? No, I paid my tax. My question to you is, have you ever seen a law that says you have to pay an income tax?
The law is that guy that wears that badge and a gun. That's when it puts you in jail. That's the law.
Actually, I can't stand the IRS. Okay? They're evil. Do you have any fear of the IRS?
Not really, because I'm Canadian.
I think it's actually unconstitutional, is what I've heard. But to avoid any hassle, I pay it.
If there was known law and I wasn't afraid of them coming and taking me to jail, absolutely, I wouldn't.
Put you over here on this one.
Okay, then no, I wouldn't pay income taxes.
You got plenty of room.
It's a no-brainer.
I wouldn't pay it.
Why would anybody? Because that's what they tell us we must do, else we're bad Americans. Would you pay it?
No.
Would you pay it?
No. Why would you pay taxes if you don't have to?
The income tax is not legal because it would be a direct tax and it is not apportioned as the Constitution demands.
If it's against the Constitution, then why are we doing it?
Do you have a bio that you'd like to have? Are you introduced? I did. Got some papers?
Was that they would not respond to my concerns and that they would provide me with the paperwork necessary to tender my resignation.
The We the People Foundation for Constitutional Education put a full-page ad in the USA Today on July 7th, 2000. And within the body of that ad was a $50,000 challenge for anyone that could show the law. And to me, $50,000 is a lot of money. So I went after that and did the research based on the fact that I thought, let's put this baby to bed. I'm hearing all these rumors, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. I'll answer these people's questions they're asking me, and then I'll win this $50,000. And, based on the research that I did throughout the year 2000, and that I'm still doing. I have not found that law. I've asked Congress, we've asked a lot of people in the IRS commissioners, helpers. They can't answer, because if they answer, the American people are going to know that this whole thing is a fraud.
I was surprised to hear these highly trained and decorated IRS agents telling me there was no law requiring American citizens to file a 1040 or to pay an income tax on their labor.
I haven't filed an federal income tax return since I left.
I have not filed a tax return since 1999. Approximately 67 million people don't file an income tax return.
I made a decision to go to Washington so I could attend the We the People Foundation press conference. They were going to serve a class action lawsuit on the IRS, signed by over 3,000 people, because the IRS has refused to show the law that makes Americans liable to file a 1040 or to pay an income tax on their labor. I was very curious as to why the IRS refused to show the law, as it seems such a simple thing to do. Yet I was skeptical about the Foundation's claims. There had to be a law, right? I mean, we've all been told over and over and over again that we had to pay income taxes.
No answers, no taxes. No answers, no taxes. No answers, no taxes.
Most people believe that the income tax system is legal, and that the revenue from the tax is used in the public interest. However, there is a substantial, conclusive body of evidence that proves that our income tax system represents the most pernicious form of tyranny. It is the greatest hoax ever perpetrated by government against the working men and women of America.
American citizens, along with the Foundation, have been asking the IRS to specifically provide them with the underlying legal foundation upon which they administer and enforce the personal income tax laws in our country.
At the national level, when people would attempt to contact somebody of a much higher authority, say the commissioner, same kind of thing. They would get answers that were in effect non-answers.
There are a group of people standing outside who assert that no law requires you to pay taxes and that you will not answer their petition to the government.
That's not, that voice sounds familiar.
Back there.
Only if you listened to the show before.
No, I have never heard the show. This is talk radio?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I brought some stuff here. Is there going to be an attorney here too?
Well, like I said, Grant's he's got a law degree and he's got a degree in seminary. So.
Oh, good.
So this will be fun.
Yes, this is the original book from The Law That Never Was. By Bill Benson and Brad Beckman. And I could start maybe with that. That's the fundamentals. That's what you.
I think he said he also found maybe your court case online.
Well, yeah, I had a couple of court cases.
Yeah, and let's see, this one is.
I had one that was written up in the Wall Street Journal.
Were you in the Seventh Circuit?
Seventh Circuit.
Yeah, that's probably it then. I was trying to do some prep last night for this, and the only thing I was able to find on you, I believe, was these court cases, which is probably way over the head of my audience. But where I'd like to start, honestly, if I could, is just some of the general questions about 16th not being amended, not actually being ratified.
Yeah, that's this book here.
Good,
right.
awesome.
Okay, that's why I brought that with me. And then you would, see, I did bring a lot of research. Constitutional information written by an engineer.
All right, all right.
I mean, I got stuff, and this one you've never seen as an attorney.
I don't think I ever have, no.
This is potent.
Yeah?
Oh, yes, this is excellent. Of course, this is written by a CPA. I was with...
we had Joe Bannister on about a year ago.
Did you? I was with Joe in Washington when he was with Sherry Jackson.
Okay.
And John, Berman, whatever it was. But anyway, we marched around, the IRS office, and Joe walked right up to the door and knocked on the door. And I want to talk to the commissioner. All I want from him is one thing, a copy of the law.
Yeah.
That makes us subject to and liable for.
Couldn't find it?
Couldn't find it.
Hey, we'll put you at this yellow.
Yeah, we're getting ready to be on there in just
okay.
about a minute.
Probably haven't seen this either, written by this thing.
No, I haven't. Hey,
by the way, I brought you some stuff too.
These microphones, they're really one directional, so don't feel bad about getting up on it. You can sit in that chair.
Sit right here.
If you want to use those headphones, you can. You don't have to, but let's make this pretty simple all the way around.
Give myself a little talk about this here. This is the United States Supreme Court. I got something here. I got something here that no one's ever seen from the IRS agent, ex-IRS agent that was in jail for 4 years, Sherry Jackson.
All right.
But this is between you and me.
All right. I gotta bring.
It's called Pink Papers.
We finally got to the end of this thing here. Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Real News. My name is Mr. Henry, broadcasting live from the FMT Insurance Studios. Our fantastic guest right now is getting set up. His name is Arnold Cohn. He goes by Arnie. And we're talking today a slew of topics that are all interrelated here. The big question being, this is going to be the question that drives us into most of this conversation with our guest here is, and I put this at the beginning of the conversation. Also, New York Times put this out to their entire readership, I believe, in what was it, the 70s or 80s. Don't quote me on when the time was, but they put this out and said, hey, we'll give a $50,000 reward to anybody that can find the law that requires you to pay a federal income tax. And suffice it to say, nobody could find that. Again, Arnold Cohn, thank you so much for joining us this morning, sir.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate coming here after spending an hour trying to find a place, and my fearless guide finally found me out here wandering around like someone in the wilderness.
That's Richard Esparza back there. And real quick, give him a history of where you're coming from on this. Maybe don't get into yet the cases. That's safe for later on. We have you for a whole hour, but you have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree as well.
Yes, and 50 hours of postgraduate, and also have from Dr. Clarkson the paralegal course, and spent a lot of time up at the UT library and the stacks and everything else. And it's very interesting going up in the stacks. I imagine you've been there before.
Sure.
And you know, the states have a copy of every constitution from every state is up in those stacks. And that's what you have to pay attention to, because that's the fundamentals. You notice every single state has its own constitution. And that didn't come by accident. Everybody thinks the war was over, you know, slavery and all, but basically it started with the Constitution. Everybody wanted to keep their own set of rules. Well, there's one particular facet in every constitution that's unique for every state, that due process shall not be excluded. That's extremely important. Now, habeas corpus has been thrown down the poop chute.
Lincoln through us.
Right. Yeah, you sound like you're laughing, but it's true.
No, it's true. It's
How does a
absolutely
person
true.
get out of jail today? Where's your get out of jail?
Right.
You can't find it. So that's probably a little bit about what we might talk about today, besides the very fundamentals of taxation. But there is an awful lot out there to help people that was never there before. I started this 35, 40 years ago fighting. And I'll tell you, it hasn't been easy. It's cost me a lot in money. It's cost me a lot in time. But I have great-grandchildren to worry about. I have grandchildren, and I have my family of doctors and everything else, lawyers, Indian chiefs, you know, you got it. And all I can tell you right now is there's been a great divide that has taken place in our country between what people know and what they think they know.
That's right. Yeah, and let me start here, too, when we're talking about taxation, okay? I just posed the question, can you find a law out there that requires you, and we're specifically talking about the federal income tax. Now, one might come back and say, you don't have to have legal training to get to this point. One might come back and say, well, Mr. Henry, my name, Mr. Henry or Arnie, what about the 16th Amendment? We have the 16th Amendment. It gives Congress the purview to set up and establish the IRS to tax, the federal income tax. But there's a bit of history behind the 16th Amendment allegedly not actually being ratified properly. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, I can. I was with Bill Benson and Red Beckman in Chicago when they went to the 6th Circuit or 7th Circuit with about 100 other people to present the law that never was. And I have one of the original copies right in front of me, all the research that was done in each of the states to see if it was properly ratified. And there is a procedure for being properly ratified. Everybody thinks you just submit the amendment that you want or whatever it is you have to get across, and that's good enough. No, every single word has to be perfect for every state to make it successful to be ratified. It was not. Now, that's the bottom line. That's the whole book here of 300 pages in a nutshell. With that in mind, they tried to get this before the various courts, and the courts kept saying, this is a political question. Hardly. It's a mechanical question that has to be addressed, and they won't address it. There's more to this than meets the eye, and the problem comes, most people really don't know who they are and who they are in relation to what's going on. And that's what you have to learn. And that's the biggest learning process, because you have to unlearn some people. And that's not easy. It's easier to teach from scratch when kids are little than wait till they get to be older and try to teach them something.
Now, it would be one thing just to say, okay, the 16th Amendment is the thing it's set up. The Supreme Court says we have this here now, and there's been several presidents before that have spoken towards the 16th Amendment, saying I feel somewhat guilty about its lack of proper ratification. But that poses the question then of, well, there has to be an enforcement mechanism behind that. Okay, the federal government could do that for you, but now come to 1913, right? We have the Federal Reserve Act that gets pushed through, and a lot of people may not understand. Speak to both of these if you can a little bit. The Federal Reserve itself, because of the name, the Federal Reserve, most Americans believe, well, this is a federal entity. It's ran by the government. Unfortunately speaking, no, it's primarily controlled by private corporations, primarily J.P. Morgan, Warburg, and the Rockefellers. Is that correct?
That's correct. Even go one step farther. They've put people in certain classifications. Let me bring you a little enlightenment on that. If you notice on a birth certificate, when people come to pick up the birth certificate, is it a birth certificate or is it a certificate of birth? Two separate things. My birth certificate has my footprint on it. Does your birth certificate have your footprint on it?
I can't remember.
Yeah, well, check it out. Most of them do. What does this mean? They came from the sea to land, and that's what the print means. Every birth certificate is a bond. Just like people have a car. They think they own their car. They don't own their car. Who owns the car? Whoever has a certificate of origin owns the car. And the state uses that as bonding power to borrow against that. When you go to turn your car into the junkyard, what do? They surrender your title, and they get back the certificate origin. Then they come and they collapse the car and put it into junk. Every person is not who they think they are. I brought 4 pages here of what the definition is of a person. And the definition of a person is misleading. And if you learn that you are not what you think you are, that's the start in the right direction.
It can also become, quite frankly, between me and you and everyone listening right now, it can also become a very dystopic, disturbing reality. It can be getting a bit depressing sometimes, right?
You're right.
When you look at, I have this quote right now from Mayor Rothschild, give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws. It really calls into question this idea of a representative republic that we allegedly, supposedly live under, does it not?
It's supposed to be a republic, not supposed to be a democracy. Democracy is mob rule, as we know. Now, a republic is a nation of laws, not of men, because all laws have what? Remedy and recourse. And when you have remedy and recourse, everybody has a chance for justice. This is very, very important. Today, I was sitting in a situation, I just came from Tucson, and my daughter is married to a doctor. He has over a doctor friend, world-renowned health surgeon. Next to him was a world-renowned astronomer. And we're talking. And I asked him, how many years of schooling have you had? My God, it was 32 years.
Right, sure.
And I said, now my next question is, when you get into a legal problem, what do? Well, we hire an attorney.
Sure.
And you hire a specialized attorney, don't you? Yes. So the money hires an attorney. They walk away. They do not know what you and I know right now. All those years of schooling and no education along to the fundamentals of what's actually happening in your own country.
Well, that would be the problem, though, too, as you say, all the years of schooling. But unfortunately, sir, it seems like academia, I don't know when this happened, but academia, even if at the highest level, and America has arguably the highest level of institutional authority in the world. We have the Harvards, we have the Ivy Leagues, right? It's become sort of an indoctrination program, if for nothing else, right?
That's the key word.
Yeah.
Indoctrination, not education. There's a difference.
And this is, again, apparently coming from Woodrow Wilson in 1919. I'm not great with quotes, but this is from the documentary I'm pulling from, talking, I suppose, about the issuing of the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. This is apparently what Woodrow Wilson said regarding that. I'm a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country, a great industrial nation is now controlled by its system of credit. We are no longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men. We have to hit this break here, but in just the last 60 seconds, I want to eventually go on after this break to is there truly no law? But what do you make of that Wilson comment right there?
I saw the movie. It was right in the movie.
Yeah.
About Wilson. And there's something more about that, is that he felt very, very remorse that he was a traitor to his own country.
I mean, but I don't know what you do with that when you have a president that feels like a traitor to its own country, too. I want to get to this eventually later on, but how does the average person fight back then?
Well, you hit it on the head. And it takes education, it takes dedication, and when you're dedicated to something, anytime you're dedicated to something, you're on a different plane of learning. Now, I've talked to so many people in so many avenues and all, and I've even won bets from attorneys. So don't bet me.
That's awesome.
I said to this one attorney, I said, I'll tell you what, we were at a cocktail party. I said, listen, what are we supposed to be living in? It says a democracy. I said, really? I was waiting for that.
Yeah, right,
I trapped him. I said, I'll bet you $1, that we don't supposed to live in a democracy. Well, prove it to me. That's what an attorney says.
Yeah.
Prove it. I said, listen to me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Give me the $1.
Give me the $1. Hey, we got to hit this break right now, 9:20 in the morning. Come back, answer that question. I'm going to play a clip from this documentary and then ask the question to our fantastic guest, Arnold Cohn. Is it true that there is no law? We'll go into a bunch of other related issues with that. Be right back.
No tax. Don't take my money if I don't have a say. No taxation without representation. Don't take my money if I don't have a say.
The Lars Larson Show.
Hey, Knoxville, it's Lars.
You'll be able to find for your library. You know, you're always welcome to come to my library if you get in trouble with the IRS. Because there's no way that you could pose all the letters that I have had after 20-some years.
Actually, I'll say this story in air as well too. Obviously, going through law school, you have to take taxation law courses, things like that. And our professor had been told us too. He said, if there's any attorney in this nation that ever tells you that they have a full comprehension of the tax code, they are lying to you. He said, nobody in this nation, nobody in this world fully understands the IRS tax code.
Even Albert Einstein said that.
Yeah.
I'd like to get into the how do people start helping themselves. That's really
that's actually what I'm going to lead to. I mean, we have the entire hour. I want to set it up a little bit though of before, and then eventually get into how to, because that's the most frustrating topic, sir. Honestly, is like to bring anything to the court system, right? And I'm talking even the most simple claim in a small claims court. You have to have some reasonable conception of the rules of general procedure, of how you introduce evidence, of all this stuff. And that's we used to call it job security in law school, right? And it shouldn't be that way. There is a very real threshold to the bar, if you will, as they call it, the bar that normal people can't cross.
I will be able to talk to that too, having gone many times to the different courts, especially up in Springfield, Illinois, which is probably the crookedest courts. Believe I was raised in Chicago.
Yeah.
I know about courts.
Man, I can believe that.
Yeah. I'll tell you something, this story.
And you were you were a teacher?
Well, I was an iron worker by trade. 4 years with Gateway Engineering. Then I went and got my degrees and all. And I was still wrestling on the wrestling circuit.
Oh, really?
Competition.
That's awesome.
Wrestling, yes. And so I went, but I ran a plant manager in Buffalo, New York for a couple of years. And then I went back into teaching and I'm still wrestling yet. So I wanted to compete. And Waukegan, Illinois has some of the finest wrestling in the country.
It does, yeah.
I was one of the coaches there for 39 years.
That's awesome.
Really. But I was 5 years, I was with the team. We won the state championship 5 times. And I was also head soccer coach there.
So played Sacramento Live too.
Oh, you did, huh?
Yeah.
What position? What position?
Oh man, I loved playing forward, but I was never good enough to play forward. My shots just weren't on. I was a great defender though. I was primarily stopper and sweeper was my favorite position.
Sweepers are very important.
Yeah, yeah.
From a coach's point of view, that's your.
I just love hitting the justice, man. You know?
You think the goalie's important?
Yeah.
Right back into this, our guest right now, Arnold Cohn. He goes by Arnie Cohn. He just handed me something saying, we challenge anyone to disprove these facts about income tax law, and that's what I'm about to go to. The most important opening question here is posed in this documentary, America, Freedom to Fascism. This is actually the producer of the movie Trading Places. I don't know what type of credence that lends to you or not, but listen to this interview. This is with a former IRS tax agent. Listen to what he says.
Sure. So naively, I agreed to go off and research it and get back to him. 3.5 months later, I was at that point where I couldn't find the statute that clearly made a person liable, at least not me and most people I know, and I had no choice in my mind except to resign.
I had to leave the IRS because I presented evidence that I had accumulated indicating that the agency was violating the law.
This is Joe Bannister, by the way. He's actually been on the program before. He's a IRS criminal investigator, and he actually had to end up leaving. I say leaving the IRS. He's basically forced out of the IRS. Listen to him.
And violating people's rights. And I asked the agency for a response to my sincere concerns. And the answer I got was that they would not respond to my concerns and that they would provide me with the paperwork necessary to tender my resignation.
We the People Foundation for
All right, this is a very interesting one for me. Her name is Sherry Jackson. She's a former IRS agent. Listen to what she says.
Constitutional Education put a full-page ad in the USA Today on July 7th, 2000. And within the body of that ad was a $50,000 challenge for anyone that could show the law. And to me, $50,000 is a lot of money. So I went after that and did the research based on the fact that I thought, let's put this baby to bed. I'm hearing all these rumors. You know, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. I'll answer these people's questions that are asking me, and then I'll win this $50,000. And, you know, based on the research that I did throughout the year 2000 and that I'm still doing, I have not found that law.
All right, so that begs the question, Arnie, here. I think the most important answer to this question is this aspect of what you said for here on Fact 4 this page is citizens impose an income tax on themselves when they voluntarily comply and voluntarily file a 1040 income tax return. But let me just ask you, sir, in your experience, and you have a wealth of experience with this, is it true there is no actual law, nothing codified yet that we could point to, that the IRS can point to say, yes, it is legally mandatory that you pay a federal income tax?
We got two facets to consider here. Is it true, or is it look like it's true? This is probably part of the problem. I was in Washington with Sherry Jackson and Joe Bannister and all. We were with the commissioner, trying to get to the commissioner to find out the very question that you just asked. He wouldn't give it to us because there isn't anything. How can you give something that's not there? He couldn't do that. Now, Sherry Jackson was prosecuted. So was Joe Bannister. They were both indicted and prosecuted. And there was 27 counts against them.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Wow.
Now, don't forget, you being an attorney, you can take and indict a ham sandwich.
That's the truth, yeah.
Okay. So, but there was 27 counts against them. Joe Bannister hired a gentleman by the name, an attorney, Robert Bernhoff out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Bob was a personal friend of mine. He did some work for me. And Bob has on record the most motions ever presented to anybody in law school, University of Wisconsin Law School. 400 motions.
Wow.
Right.
Goodness.
All right. But anyway, he defended Joe Bannister. Joe Bannister got off 100%. This is in California. Sherry Jackson had a different attorney. She didn't get off. She had an 8-year sentence. She got out in 4 years.
Wow, she actually served.
4 years she served.
Wow.
You know. And she stayed at my house for a couple of days after she came out, and all she spoke to our group, which was the Knoxville Patriots at that time, East Tennessee Research Institute. It was a combination organization that I had for 22 years, and we would meet once a month, and it was formed by Dr. Clarkson out of the Carolinas, and he has since died. He was a Vietnam vet. Anyway, he used to present different facets for us, and so we would learn. He instilled in us the idea of words, how important every word is. Do not take any word for granted. For instance, you go in and you're going to buy a car, and you got that long contract, right? You sign on the bottom line and you bought the car. How do you reserve your rights on that contract?
It's not in the contract, right? It's not.
Okay, right. All right. Now, I'll give you another one. You go to a bank and you fill out, you want to set up a savings account, and they give you that card. How do you reserve your rights on that card? This just happened recently because I opened up another new account. And they don't know. I said, you put down there UCC 1-308. It used to be 1-207, but they changed it. That's Uniform Commercial Code, which gets us into a very important part of the whole income tax thing. When you make a contract, the Internal Revenue Service recognizes contracts.
That's right.
Believe me, big time. They will not infringe upon a contract because that's a headache.
Yeah.
If you have a contract, you got to go and disprove that you were trying to do this, that, and the other thing. But if you reserve your rights, what are you saying? Legislature meets, they change rules all the time. Laws are changed all the time. You don't know what the laws, either do the attorneys. You got to be up on it. That's why they give those publications every year. So when you reserve your rights, it gives you time to find out what all laws have, what remedy and recourse,
right?
And it gives you a chance to find a recourse. People do not know how to read and understand what they read, or what they read sometimes is not what they think they're reading.
That's right. That's right. It's actually a good place to stop right there. We have to get this news break coming up right now. I'll tell you what I want to do when I come back. I want to spend a short part of this next segment on Fact 4 right there, of this aspect of voluntary compliance behind. We've set up the segment of 16th Amendment not properly being ratified, set up the segment of Federal Reserve Act, the history behind that. Now we've kind of went through the idea already of there apparently is no actual codified law that forces individuals to pay this federal income tax. It's basically voluntary compliance through contractual obligation that we're talking about right now. I want to move that into a couple final segments here with Arnie of what can the average man do to try and fight against this. 9:32 in the morning. Be right back.
Okay. I'll go into that.
Yeah, I'm going to hit the bathroom.
Go ahead. You know where it's at.
Yeah.
John with a question.
Really?
Arnie?
Yeah.
Would you like to take any phone calls?
I'll take whatever you want, sure.
Okay. Arnie said game.
Oh man, Eric, I don't know how long we've gone that. Somebody in my Facebook wanted to know if you had any opinions on the IMF.
Yeah, I do. This is all part of it, you know.
If I'm being honest, I probably won't have time to get to them. I mean, if you want to take their question off air, I can figure out the best time to put it in, but I have way too much stuff I need to get to. She said she fought it for 11 years? All right, let me get through this next segment. I'll probably throw in on that last one. If she wants to, or she can just hang on, either one. All right.
I think they're just playing word games.
You don't think they're sincere people, you know?
No, I don't.
What is voluntary compliance?
And what is,
You don't think they're sincere people, you know?
No, I don't think they're sincere.
Kelly, talking about Facebook right now.
okay.
Kelly, did you say you wanted a copy of "We Challenge Anyone to Disprove These Facts About Tax Income Law"? If so, I'll try and photocopy this before Arnie leaves and throw this up on our Facebook for you. It's an interesting one, Jill. It's Fact 1, residents of the states of the Union are not required by law to file Forms 1040, and they are not liable for the payment of a tax on income unless they are withholding agents. Fact 2, Americans are misled and deceived into believing that the income tax applies to the general public. Fact 3, the IRS admits that the income tax system is dependent on voluntarily filing of taxes. That's actually a decision from U.S. v. Flora. U.S. Supreme Court stated, quote, "Our system of taxation is based on voluntary assessment," goodness gracious, "and payment, not upon," goodness, really? Wow. If a law requires you to do something, your compliance with the law is mandatory, not voluntary. But if a law requires certain other people, not you, to do something, your compliance with the law is voluntary. IRS has repeatedly stated the mission of the Internal Revenue Service is to encourage and achieve the highest possible degree of voluntary compliance, which is basically everybody, I suppose. That's the important part, too. I don't know if you know if we have time to get into this today. The difference between direct and an indirect tax.
Yeah.
That's a whole bag of worms right there, right?
We can do that some other days, but try to help the people to start with.
Yeah.
Is what we should shoot for a little bit.
Yeah, this one I'm going to do. I'm going to come back and just get your opinion real quick on the voluntary compliance part,
Yes.
which I think will set up a reason to sort of motivate people to get.
I have something right away to add to
All right.
that. So
All right, yeah. And then as soon as I cover that voluntary compliance thing, that's what I'm going to do is try and give the rest of the show an opportunity to help the people with it.
You know, if you came over to my house sometime, I could load you up with stuff, run it off, because I got a big giant copy machine.
Yeah, okay.
And then you'd always have something, you see, it will build you a nice file of your own so that you organize. But one of the problems is keeping organized on this.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Oh, really? $35? $35?
Yeah, Eric, there's never enough time, man. IMF, direct versus indirect taxes, dude, I got like 4 hours worth of prep on just this one story, but I think the most important thing is what Arnie's saying too is figure out how to help
we can help people.
Yeah. Or at least get started on this process, right?
Right. That's a good way of looking at it.
Joined by Arnold Cohn right now. This is what we're talking about is we set up all this stuff, 16th Amendment not properly ratified, the formation of the Federal Reserve Act, went through all that stuff, there not being an actual codified law in the books requiring you to pay a federal income tax. Here's what I'm going to try and make available for the Real News audience on Facebook and the like as well, something Mr. Cohn just handed to me a while back. We challenge anyone to disprove these facts about income tax law. Fact 1. Residents of the states of the Union are not required by law to file Forms 1040, and they are not liable for the payment of a tax on income unless they are withholding agents. Facts 2. Americans are misled and deceived into believing that the income tax applies to the general public. Fact 3, this is where I want to focus on right now. The IRS admits that the income tax system is dependent on the voluntary filing of tax returns. This is actually based upon a decision, or at least reaffirmed through a decision from 1960 U.S. v. Flora, where it states there, the Supreme Court stated, quote, "Our system of taxation is based on voluntary assessment and payment. If a law requires you to do something, your compliance with the law is mandatory, not voluntary. But if a law requires certain other people, not you, to do something, then your compliance with the law is voluntary." The IRS has actually repeatedly said that the mission of the IRS is to encourage and achieve the highest possible degree of voluntary compliance with the tax laws and regulation. Mr. Cohn, let me get your response to this statement right here from an IRS agent, I suppose, working a little while back when this documentary was made. He's asked something to the effect of this voluntary compliance.
What does voluntary compliance mean?
And why does the IRS code say it's voluntary to comply, not mandatory?
That's a word euphemism we use. We use voluntary compliance when we talk about traffic signals. Most people at 2 o'clock in the morning, do you stop at a red light?
Yeah.
Is there a cop there?
Well, sometimes I don't.
Well, I do, and most of us do.
Right.
But that's voluntary compliance.
All right, now I personally see that as a bit of a false equivalency there. What do you make of that, though?
Well, you know something, let's always compare apples with apples and oranges with oranges. You can make logic very good, you can make logic very illogical. And you could have statistics, and statistics could be great liars, so we have to understand a couple things here. What we're trying to concept here today, this morning, from what I understand, is to try to give some people some hope.
Exactly.
If you don't have hope, it's hard to go on. People don't realize what's happened in our country. They're just starting to wake up a little bit, which is good, and they're starting to listen, which is good, and they're starting to pay attention to what we're saying, which is good. With that in mind, how can people be helped? Well, first of all, if you do have an attorney, what are you saying? You put your hands in your thoughts in an attorney's hands, realize how the court looks at you. You are considered an idiot. The attorney is the person that's going to be representing you. When you go into a courtroom, and I've been in there a number of times, the judge is not your friend. The opposing attorney is not your friend. Your attorney is not your friend. You have only one friend in there, and that is the court of record. Because that gives you a chance for appeal. And all judges fear appeals.
That's truth. That's the truth, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so with that in mind, how can people start to help themselves? Well, first of all, you got to get committed. Either you want to help yourself, you want to put yourself away from the boob tube and get involved, you set a little section of your office, home office in there, get yourself a little computer, get yourself a little copy machine, start building a little file up. You are going to school, homeschooling on yourself. When I first started this thing 35, 40 years ago, and agents came into my house and put me out of my own home on the street while they interviewed my wife, I knew something was wrong, and I was going to do something from that day forward.
Wow.
All right, with that in mind, you can learn the truth. Now, this thing on the 1040, if you read what it really says on the brochure from the Internal Revenue Service, it says, if you think you are liable, fill out your 1040. Or a statement. Well, send in a statement. I send in a statement. Fine, I know I'm in quote, not a taxpayer, but a non-taxpayer. Number two, I don't want to form a contract with you because contract is binding. You know, they have all kinds of ads on the radio today. We'll take care of your tax problem and everything else. You know what kind of tax problem they're going to take care of? They go and they talk to the agent, and he gives you 4 pages of an offer in compromise. You know, item number 1 is on that page that you agree to file for the next 5 years. That's a contract. You better do what you agree to. Most people never seen an offer in compromise. I have. I've read them in detail. And they try to sucker you into that. They try to pull you in every way they possibly can. After all, the Internal Revenue Service is different than the Internal Revenue. So if you want to deal with internal revenue, that's when you start putting out CISK trusts for the Internal Revenue to be able to behave. The Internal Revenue Service, you're dealing with due process, you're dealing with all these laws that protect you. But you got to know how to give non-consent to what they want to do. The term is non-consent. The term is trespass. They're trespassing on your rights. You've got to learn these things. Now, one of the things you can get yourself, everybody can, and you can get it down at the strip here by UT, a used Black's Law Dictionary.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I have probably 7 of them in my house.
And they're different. They've changed them throughout the years. Black's Law Dictionary is extremely important. It'll teach you what the words mean through legalese, because they do not mean what you think they mean. With that thought in mind, with that book in mind, you could look up, for instance, the term that the Internal Revenue Service is using today when you send in these, you're a conscientious objector, but you've got a frivolous argument. Really? Well, look up the word frivolous in Black's Law Dictionary. It's 2 pages long. And what the basics of it is this, that you are operating outside of the law with these arguments, different things like conspiracy theories and all this here, you know. I do not do that. When I discuss with people today, when I argue with people today, when I challenge with people today, I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, white, black, brown, green, yellow. What I do is tell me the facts and tell me the law, and we'll discuss. And if you can't do those 2 things, I don't want to deal with you.
Let me ask you this then. Okay, some might look at the situation and say, okay, but to provide for the general welfare of America, you know, taxation is somewhat necessary so we can continue to run the government. Now, I would say, okay, fine. You're one of these individuals that wants to voluntarily comply. I don't necessarily, if you want to voluntarily comply, that's fine. What would you do then with another person that says there's only 2 things guaranteed in life, death and taxes? So this is an impossibility to fight against, right? It's that immovable object.
Well, this is very, very important argument, and I found it against an attorney, real known, good attorney in town here and all, and we discussed, we were at a picnic last week. He came up to me, he wanted to talk to me. He retired. You know, you gave me a couple of books, Arnie, and what about these things?
I don't know.
You see, he was just starting to learn. So what I can say is this here. I would tell those people, look, do you really want to learn?
Sure.
Or you just give me a 2-word argument? Because if you really want to learn, I'll spend time with you. I really will. I'm very patient, and I try to keep my thoughts about me, and I try to keep calm, because dealing with people in the kindergarten level is not easy when you should be up at a higher level.
That's very true. I mean, you even mentioned Black's Law Dictionary on this show, and all of a sudden you're at a different echelon of individual. Right. We have to hit this last break in the show here coming up, and what I think I'm going to do when I come back, we focus a little bit on how to help the average man. I'm going to come back with Joan and Stimpy, and being that this is our last break of the show, I'm going to do my best possible here to get both of them on for at least 2 minutes here, because I want to make sure they get their opinions across. But we are stuck for time here, and this is a topic, y'all, that honestly we might have to have Arnie in back here another time, because we could have gone for probably 5 hours just on this alone, and only broach the beginning of the topic, right? This is just the tip of the iceberg here. But let's hit this break here coming up, and I'll try and make as much of this information available on Real News Facebook page or social media as I can. I'll obviously cut this interview up later on to throw in all the social media. 9:48 right now. Hit this break, come back with these 2 calls, and then we'll be out.
Politicians to my house, by the way.
Sure.
And my phone number, my email, and everything. Let me put it on the back of that paper there.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something.
This one.
Yeah. Okay. And that way, because you're younger than me. I'm 85 years old, and so I want to be able to pass on.
Sure.
To people.
Yeah.
I don't want all this knowledge I have to go lost.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I appreciate that too.
See, I'm up in Canada in the summertime for 3 months.
Oh, nice. What part?
Lake of the Woods.
Okay.
You know where International Falls is?
Actually, no.
That's the farthest part.
Okay. Went to Banff a couple of Christmases back. Hung out there.
You fish or anything?
Oh, I love fishing. I'm not good at it. I'm a terrible fisherman, but I absolutely love it.
Are you married or girlfriend?
Married. Yeah, about 10 years.
You got kids or anything?
No, I'd love to have the whole baseball team. But
Well, come up and visit me in the summertime.
Yeah.
I'll put you. It won't cost you anything.
All right. That's awesome.
Bring your wife with you, though.
I've known you for 10 years. You hadn't invited me.
I invited you. Yes, I have. You know I have. You've been to my house and everything.
Well, I've been to your house, yeah.
I've invited you many
His wife
times.
makes great pancakes.
Yeah.
Gluten-free at that.
You know you're welcome to come.
I know. I was giving you a hard time. That would be fun. A little bit of a trip. How long of a drive is it?
It's 20 hours, 21 hours.
Oh, wow.
And you drive straight through.
Yeah.
We need to find someone that has a private plane, man.
Yeah.
Or at least a pilot.
I've got a friend that became a pilot here a while back. Actually, 2 now that I know of.
I'd love to get my pilot's license, man, just so I can get over my fear of flying.
Now, have you flown recently, Arnie, or you normally
Yeah, I just
drive?
got back from
Oh, did you?
Tucson.
Okay.
My great-grandkids, I saw them. They came in from Denver.
Real news, ladies and gentlemen. Let me go right now to Joan on the line. And for Joan and Stippy, I want to make sure to give Arnie here, I guess, enough time to respond. So if we can, possibly about 2 minutes each here. Joan, go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, Joan, you're on.
I can't hear any of you.
Hang on here, Joan. Joan, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I fought the IRS for 11 years. I want to ask Arnie, are you aware of Joe Sweet, the Joy Foundation, and prior to that, a Mr. Benson, who kind of was premier in starting a lot of this? He wound up in federal prison. The feds broke his knees. They shot his family dead on the highway. This is the only entity of the United States government that takes money from you by force and at the behest of a gun and a badge. Now, I used Joe Sweet and the Joy Foundation. They laid out everything you're saying. And I filled out Freedom of Information requests for years. And they were trying, the guy that was working with me, or working on my behalf, one David Miner, who still runs IRX Solutions. Nobody should fall for him. But he was trying to get the release of the piece of paper the IRS has that turns you from a person into a corporation. And we never could get that, but that was one of the attacks that he was using. All the foundation, Joe Sweet, Dave Miner, all now are convicted felons. Some are still serving time. Wisconsin Circuit Court federal judge outlawed the common law trusts, of which my property is still under. My KUB bill is under the name of that, and my phone.
And Joan, I want to give Arnie enough time to respond to that off air. I do appreciate you calling in, though, Joan.
I mean, you can argue this all you want, but when the guns and badges show up, where are you at?
I hear you. Joan, thank you so much for this call. We'll talk to you soon. There goes Joan. What do you make of that, Arnie?
Well, Joan, I met you a long time ago, and I know you're very astute. I could tell by the way you're talking. Yes, I knew Bill Benson personally. You know, I know his whole story from get-go. And yes, things are happening. He is not the only one that happened to. There's 2 or 3 people that I could think of right offhand that it's happened to. And people I can't believe this has happened. We had one gentleman who was a anesthetist, and he was in the what do you call it, Coast Guard for years, and he married a Russian gal who came over with him here. She was a dentist in Russia, and she came over, and they came over to our house. I got talking with him, and he was a legal researcher too, and she said to me, she says, I can't believe this. This is worse than the KGB over in Russia.
I laugh, but that's not something to be laughing about.
No,
I'm
it's
just laughing at how
not.
absurdly correct it is.
It's true. But I'd like to just spend one moment here trying to help people a little bit. We talked about Black's Law Dictionary, but there's a couple things you could do. One of them that's just filling out a simple little FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request for your IMF file, your individual master file, your business master file, BMF, and your MDISA file, AMDISA. That's everything else. Now, these files will come back to you coded with numbers, and you do not know what they mean. There's a gentleman right outside Pigeon Forge out here. He's an ex-Marine drill sergeant, and he decodes these things. Now, I happened to do mine. I went down to Mr. Stranding in Ohio, and he had 3 stories of people decoding. Believe it or not, my wife and I made $329 million producing farm equipment. They set us up as a corporation. If you look at your communications from the IRS, your name is always printed in capital letters instead of upper and lower case. And that's how they decipher between a private citizen or a
corporation.
Interesting. Now, when you go into court today and you say to the judges, blah, 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 the Constitution says this, the Constitution says that, and the judge says what to you? Don't come in here with that Constitution. And you can't believe that this is happening. But the judge is right. A corporation doesn't come into court and exercises constitutional rights. Private human beings, living human beings do. So there is a distinction.
Gotcha. Yeah, Stumpy, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get to your call here. And I guess if anybody was going to take away anything from what we're talking about today here, Stumpy, again, apologize about that, buddy. We only have about 60 seconds left. If anybody was to take away anything from this today, we've been speaking for an hour, speaking about how this entire thing was set up, the 16th Amendment, the Federal Reserve Act being put together, there not being actual codified law. This is a lot of information, and we're just on page 1. We're just on page 1. We could go for, like I said before, 6, 7, probably 4 solid weeks about this entire thing, and I still wouldn't be caught up. The audience still wouldn't be caught up. If they had to take one thing away from this, what would you say that is?
Don't give up hope.
Don't give up hope.
Never, 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 never quit fighting. Because when you learn that there is problems out there and you learn to fight, I'm an ex-wrestling coach. When you learn to fight, you'll have that kind of confidence that you can't be defeated. They're not tough enough to defeat you. Yeah, they can put you in prison. Yeah, they can take your property. Yeah, have they taken my property? They've taken property. But that doesn't mean you quit. You never let a knockdown be a knockout.
I like that. I might steal that and make this the motto of this show, honestly. Never let a knockdown be a knockout. Seriously, that's what it should become. It's fantastic stuff.
Oh, P.S. And if you're married, make sure your wives stay with you.
Yeah, that's right, sir. Yeah. Hey, 9:57, about to be 9:58 right now. You know what that music means. Unfortunately, we have to end the program today. Stick around for news, traffic, or weather, all that. Can't thank our guest enough, Arnie Cohn, here for coming in and sharing some of his insight and knowledge. Glenn Beck coming up next. We will be back tomorrow doing it big.
For you, I'll set up. I'll have a brief for you. You take what you want. You'll have plenty of ammunition, so you won't be speaking off the cuff.
Right.
You'll speak from law and facts.
Okay.
That's the best thing for you, especially on the show.
Sure.
You know, you're in a learning situation. So am I. We've been learning. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah.
I had this one here. Did you ever see this here in the back of this? Read that.
That's awesome. Hey, is there? We can make copies here, can't we?
Sure.
Yeah.
I gave you those. You can have those.
Oh, seriously?
I brought those for you. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I try to bring something for you.
All right. I didn't know if this was your only copy. Yeah, these in particular, I'm sure the audience would love to have. That's great. All right. Well, sir, again, I can't thank you enough for coming in and for continuing doing what you're doing.
I want to thank you
Yeah.
for having the guts and the foresight to understand what's really going on.
Oh, sure.
Because something woke you up inside. I don't know what did.
It's a little bit more in him than me actually just turned me on to this information. And I'll tell you, I say that from an unfortunate perspective because you go through law school and they don't give you this opinion in law school. They don't.
Well, I mean, you can go to Thomas Woods. You know Tom Woods?
Yeah.
He's written articles in length about the 16th Amendment not being fully ratified. So it's not just a tax protester, tax avoider concept.
Right.
It's a historical perspective because that's what Tom Woods is.
I want to say that we either had someone that asked Scalia when he came to our school, or I've heard Scalia asked about this before, something pertaining to the 16th. And I don't want to paraphrase too much here, but I want to say most of his response was like, "What are you gonna do?" Like honestly, it was a little bit of like, "What are you gonna do? It's kind of here now. Whether it was ratified properly or not, it's done. It's stuck with us, right?"
Jesus didn't say that.
No, that's right. Yes, that's the truth, man.
Surround yourself with him.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel more comfortable.
So did Scalia came to your school in Virginia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said before, he's not a nice guy at all. Really
And I asked him about the income tax being constitutional.
Yeah.
He says if it gets too high, just revolt.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to do that.
Right.
Because we are fighting the toughest war there is.
Well, he was kind of flippant in personality anyway.
Right. But this is a tough war.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're dealing with people's minds. You're dealing with fear. You can't believe how many people fear.
Well, that's the thing. You had enough people just to make a quorum to put through the Federal Reserve Act.
Right.
Yeah, but you're also dealing with an entity, bro, that's larger than I think people could even possibly conceive. Like, you talk about the FBI, and people have some decent conception of how big that organization is. We're talking about the IRS and taking people's money, man.
You've heard the concept. The Federal Reserve is as federal as Federal Express.
Right, yeah.
Same with the IRS.
No, yeah, for sure, man. But it's even larger than just this nation.
And if I'm not mistaken, are they based in Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
that's right.
They're a collection agency.
Collection agency. Right. That's why you don't deal with them under Title 26. The first thing you learn is you deal with them under Title 15, the Fair Debt Collection Act.
Interesting.
That is entirely different, and you put that on there. Now, anytime they send you, don't forget, here's an agent. Monday morning comes, boss gives them a stack like this. Get these out here, collect from him, collect from him, collect from him. I want them all gone by Friday. So by Friday, he gets them all out there. Maybe it might be 50 people. Out of 50 people, maybe 2 or 3 start, hey, I don't want any trouble. Write a check and send it back to them. Now, you multiply that by the thousands. They're collecting money every day.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Out of fear.
Yeah.
Out of fear. No question about it. So what you have to do is you got to wake certain people up. You got to wake certain leaders up, people who are saying, look, this isn't true. You don't have to accept this. But people, be honest with you, people who make money, I just come from big money.
Yeah.
My son-in-law makes $700,000 retired a year.
Gee, wow.
Okay? He was in orthodontics for 20 years. Big game hunter. He's written up in all the books and all this stuff. And, they go all over the world. My daughter's a cyclist. She's Italy and all this kind of stuff. Big money. I understand what you're saying. I'll give you a good example. He says, Joan was just on her. She says she's got a trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got 3 trusts that she's talking about that work. He says, I'm going to get a trust. I got to get a trust because he deals in stocks.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Yeah, this is 3 years ago. And I said, really, what kind of trust are you going to get? He says, I'm going to go to my attorney. That's right. And what kind of trust is your attorney going to get? He's going to get you a statutory trust. So I brought out the book. It shows you how the wealth do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Open up the book. There's a column. Statutory trust, non-statutory trust, like the Massachusetts trust.
Right.
Common law trust is all that's here. Now, statutory trusts are good trusts, except when the legislature meet and they change the laws.
Yeah.
Now you get changed. These others are fixed by the solid.
Yeah.
They don't change. Oh, I let my attorney handle it. Right. Attorney handled it, $30,000 for his trust.
Golly.
Yeah, it was this thick.
Yeah.
I just come back. He says, you wouldn't believe. He said, my attorney called me. I had to go in there, and he had to make out a new trust for me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because laws all changed.
Yeah.
So there's $30,000.
Well, and there's such a large component of this too, of that voluntary compliance aspect. In Tennessee, I mean, you know this too, the red light camera tickets, right? Okay, so you get one of these red light camera tickets. The state attorney general has been very clear before that you can't use a private entity to enforce state laws. You don't have to pay these things. All right, well, even after, who was it, Holt? They put this stuff at the bottom of the tickets. I've actually looked up these stats. 98% of people used to pay those tickets prior to that statute being put at the bottom of the ticket. After they put it at the bottom of the ticket, in very clear language, you don't have to pay this. It's not going to affect your driving record. It won't affect your driving points. It's not going to, the collection agency is not going to come after you. It's not going to affect your credit score or anything like this. 94% of people still pay for that. It's only 4% of the people in the entire state that's
And the city of Morristown and the city of Selma are at the moment violating state law.
Dude, and that's just red light tickets. Now you take a red light ticket and you expand that fear into the IRS. I mean, people are afraid. They're just straight up afraid to do something about it.
You know, what have we done? Is partially the public education. Through indoctrination. You know, you made people subservient. And,
well, but what are you going to do, Arnie? You're going to go out there and start preaching to people at an academic level that you shouldn't pay? You're going to get not taken out. I don't know if they're going to kill you, but they're certainly going to shut you up, right? I mean,
hey, listen, I've got a lot of scars on me, all right? And in fact, listen to this here. You heard of the agents that these sovereign people?
Sovereign citizens,
Okay, I know them all. All right, George was over at the house last week. They had to pay $10,000 to get out of jail. What did they do? They filled out a Siskay trust for millions of dollars against these public officials. Well, this is Nashville. What did they do to them? You did not know to give them 30 days recourse. So therefore, you go to jail. They put it right in jail. They seized them all. They collected them all, 8 of them, put them in jail. I happened to go to one of their meetings. I know the whole background there. I could have signed that thing like the next one. Anyway, one of the guys was, you know, Mark McConnell.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark McConnell, ex-paratrooper, Green Beret. His son is 5 years in Iraq, West Point graduate. Wow. This guy's an engineer. Besides, this guy's no dummy. Let me tell you something right now. No dummy. And he's got a lot of guts. Besides, he was with the sheriff's department for a couple of years before. Okay. They came to his house to collect him. His buddy came to him and said, "Hey, you better get out of here. We're here to collect you." So he ducked out the back door. He'd been gone now 2 years. He left his wife and everything else, but he could survive anywhere. Right? I mean, there's a guy he's a mercenary.
Sure,
By the way, tomorrow he's a mercenary. He'll make good money and all that stuff. But the point is, he had to give that up. He is willing to sacrifice that. The FBI come to my house. This was September. Okay. Or in June, just before I went to Canada. Okay.
Just so you know, we're broadcasting on Facebook right now.
And so, you're not, okay. So they came to my house, 2 guys. Where were they from? Minnesota. They just put a sign here. We're looking for Mark McConnell. Can you help us out? Well, they know I know him, you know. People ask questions, they know me.
This went to the FBI or TBI?
No, FBI.
Okay.
FBI came. It was the TBI guy, yeah.
Oh, both?
Yeah, both of them came, see. And they flapped their credentials out there.
Interesting.
I don't know where he's at. In fact, his son just called me, wanted to know if I knew where he was at. And that's his son and all. I said, but I appreciate this problem here of this sovereignty situation. Would you speak before our group? Oh, really? Yeah, because we have a decent group. You know, I've had, what's his name from
Sheriff Mack.
Sheriff Mack and all that stuff. I said, would you speak before I go? Yes.
About 80 people showed up that night.
Yeah. So, yeah, I will. Great. So I set it up, everything else. The day they're supposed to speak, in September, they don't call me or nothing. I go to the meeting, they don't show. So I call them. Oh, we've been reassigned to something else. You know, why don't you call me? You know what I mean? I'll get someone else to take place. No, they've been reassigned to something else. I wanted them to talk on sovereignty.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The whole concept, you know, the sovereign citizen concept, even in that term, it's not even used in that capacity citizen. They don't use that.
They don't use that.
So you call them sovereign citizen, it's not a correct term.
Interesting. Do you have a carry license?
I do not.
Okay, I have a carry license. All right. When you go to get your carry license, and you have to be renewed every 3 years. I was just there again, and I want to renew it, and they give you the application again. You fill it all out. You got to fill blah blah the whole thing. Number one item. You know what number one item is on there?
What?
Number one.
Are you a citizen in the United States?
Are you a U.S. citizen? Out of the United States.
He changes his documents.
I changed this is my contract with you, right? I'm saying to her, scratch it out. I'm a private American.
Oh, there's no problem with that at all. I mean, I think several prominent attorneys would probably advise that you do that. Actually, I've known judges before that have told me in classrooms too. Even something as stupid as, I had a judge in my trial attorney class tell me one time he was going by, like in the Smoky Mountains, you know, they have those little tube things you can send or whatever. He says every time he goes to one of those things to sign, to waiver, right, of death and dismemberment and all this other nonsense, he'll strike through probably most of that and say, no, not applicable to, and then sign that at the end, and the person that he hands it to is, they have no idea what to do with it.
High school. Like,
right, yeah.
Whatever.
I guess they file it or whatever, but I mean, God forbid something comes back. Yeah, I mean, but therein lies another part of the problem. It's that job security aspect of the legal code is not nobody. Aside from going to law school or you or someone who wants to be self-informed. I went to a smaller school in Virginia. Yeah.
Okay. I got to tell you a quick story. Okay, if you got time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we got to do this promo in about 10 minutes.
Picked up my new boat in Wisconsin. All right, this is years ago. And I'm driving, and it's come to a T in the road. School bus is there, and I'm over here. And I stop. I have a school bus or license to drive school buses. All right, and I stop. Nothing comes out. You know, their little thing comes out. No lights go out. Everything else. And I'm sitting there waiting. Nothing. So I figured he'd wait for me. This is my turn. I have my turn signals out. I go around, and I pass him by. I must have been 100 yards past him, and he puts out the thing.
The stop sign?
The stop sign. A couple kids get out and walk across the street. I didn't think anything of it. So now, about 2 weeks goes by, and I'm building a new home across the street. I used to build. That's what I built on the side. And state police go up there, my house, and I'm dirty and everything else. He says, "Can I see you?" "Yeah." "Are you so-and-so?" "Yeah." I said, "Listen, this happened a couple weeks ago. This guy's an old timer driving this thing, and this happens all the time, but we have to check it out." So he re-added to me that I crossed my, "Yeah, I remember that. It was strange." I said, in fact, I was way past him, and then he puts out the thing. And I show him my license here, and I say, "Here, I'm a school bus driver. I can drive a school bus." You know. And so, and big semis. So anyway, he says, "Well, I have to write out a citation for you." "Really?" "Yeah, but I'll do it when I get into the office." I said, "You might forget what I told you. I want you to put down what I say." "Oh, that's all right." "No." I called my grandson who was working for me. He's in IT with Guggenheim. Anyway, I said, "Just stand here and be my witness." So I said, "I want you to fill it out right now." He's in the car. So he fills out everything. Okay, tears it off. I reserve my rights on there. He gives me back the thing here. "See you in court." Just like that. Okay, got a court thing. I go to court. Everybody's there. The prisoners are there. Everybody comes in shackles. The whole works, right? I'm sitting there. They call your name, I said, "I'm not crossing the bar." I'm not crossing the bar. And besides, I'm invoking the Clearfield Doctrine. Sit down. Okay.
Not really?
Yeah, sit down. He goes through, there was 25 people in there, the prisoners, go through, right, sitting there. He says, "What's this all about?" I said, "It's about the attorney for the state." Gets up there and says what it's about. He says, "Well, you'll have to post bond then if you want." "Not posting bond. I mean, use the Clearfield Doctrine, as far as I'm concerned." He says, "Just go out there so you can go home and he'll contact you. State attorney will contact you." Okay, so I go out there and I put on there, scratched out everything. Okay, I'm out of my own recognizance. I go home. He calls me by, "State attorney, come on down, I want to talk to you." Now it's a $500 fine.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, he comes down, he sits me down there, explain me what happened. I explain what happened. Now he says, "Look, we're going to reduce this thing down to $50. Let's get the hell out of here."
Yeah.
I said, "Listen, the first thing you're going to do is pull in your court reporter right now."
Yeah.
Because they keep him in the outer office here. He pulled in a court report, did what I said. I said, this is what I recorded. I'm invoking the clear field doctrine. I'm not going to give you 50 cents the first thing. And I've already paid $6 for a full jury trial. You could have a small.
Yeah.
$6 for a full jury trial.
How long ago was that?
Well, this is about 30. I've been here 22 years, about 30 some years ago. You know. So anyway, he says, you got to be kidding. No. Okay, I'll contact you again. So I go home. He calls me next day. This is a Monday. I was there. Tuesday he called me. He says, listen, we go to trial there. I'll dismiss it and everything else. Is that a fact? No, you won't. I'm not going there. I'm going to show up there. I want you to know that. Unless I get from you a letter that you're dismissing it,
right.
So they signed and they're, well, I can't get it to you in time. Yes, you're only 30 miles away. Deliver it to my post office box.
Give me a copy of that motion. Right?
Yeah.
Why not?
I made him do it.
Yeah.
I made him do that there because otherwise he's not there. They show up, you want to dismiss it. Now you're guilty. Anyway, how did I learn that? You learn so much stuff from the streets. When you're raised in the streets, you got to live by the street code, you know, the way you do it. And you mentioned the different people that are in jail and stuff. Sure there are. Hey, the war. Do you think everybody was a hero in the war? Hell no. You think there's a lot of dead people that are not heroes? Hell yes. But there's a lot of heroes that are dead too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you get a lot of things that are uncomfortable. The best thing you could do is protect yourself.
Yeah.
Make yourself judgment proof. How do you do it? First of all, get yourself these trusts that Jude was talking about. You stop by the house there, I show you some trusts and all that. Because they came after me with my trust, and they wanted to lien them all. Lien them all. Packages of lien on my trust. Really? Cohn Family Trust, Cohn Construction Trust, 777 Trust. Come after me. Lien on all these things. Really? You see what I put together for them. Not only thanked me for my correspondence, and removed every one of them. Because a private trust is different than a statutory trust. They come under the private laws.
I gotta hit the bathroom, y'all.
Oh,
Go ahead. This is the last thing.
Thanks for having me in, guys. And if I could help you, here's my phone.